It's a wise world. Alright, are we, okay, it's live. Cool. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Sir Hans Reviews. My name's Mark. And this...
Zadrizes Buzdari Gozdau.
It's like a bit of an echo. What is that? What is this? Echo. Am I tripping? Kind of sounds like an echo. Kind of sounds like a dag echo. Please, go follow me on social media. On Instagram is Sir_Hunts_reviews, and on Twitter as well, Sir_Hunts. Let's see. I don't see the chat popping up, so I'll probably have to re-add it. What's up? Let me re-add it real quick. It does this every stream. It's kind of silly. Chat box. When I'm putting up is a chat box. Yes, it will be the chat box. Oh no, not over there. Let's put it right here. You know what? It's still not showing up though. That's how it is. Once again, please go follow me on social media at Sir_Hunts on most platforms. If you have an account up there. If you don't, then obviously follow me here on Instagram or on YouTube. Is what's best. This damn blunt is falling apart. It's these shitty ass cigars. Alright, so let me see on YouTube, make sure it's actually playing. That would be helpful. Alright, cool. I can't see who's in the chat. I don't know why it's not refreshing. You would think, you know, this is a paid-for service. The chat should be showing up here. But I can see it on my phone. Shout out to Yuvraj Aluka, Christian Oles, Miss Lady LA, J.S. Holgerson, Mitchell McCormick, Mixed Queen Destiny Phillips 420, and anybody else who is watching but potentially not typing in the chat. So we're going to be discussing Robert's Rebellion. I got some notes here. They're more like talking points. I try to make these episodes of Leaks and Lore, the live ones, I try to make them as free-flowing as possible. And one of the ways I do that is by, well, not scripting anything. So we'll start out with Robert Baratheon. How is he connected to the Targaryens? Because it's kind of, it's established very well. Well, I wouldn't say very well, but it's well established in the books, but not so much on the TV show. They kind of just made it seem as though he's this angry fat guy who was sort of tired with the Targaryens. His girl was stolen from him, so this is why he smashed him. But when you look at like the history of House Baratheon, you look at the history of House Targaryen, they're literally connected. House Baratheon was founded by Aegon the Conqueror. House Baratheon didn't exist before Aegon and the Targaryens conquered Westeros, right? So when Aegon first came over to Westeros, he was born on Dragonstone, but he spent a good chunk of his time in the East, right? We don't know the exact dates, but we know that he conquered Westeros when he was like in his mid-20s, 25, 27, right? But before that, he did fight wars in Essos. Specifically, he helped out in Pentos. And on House of the Dragon, when Daemon and Laena and Baela and Rhaena are in Pentos, sort of on exile from King's Landing, because remember, Daemon kind of does a bunch of things to piss off King Viserys, and then he leaves, right? Kind of similar to what happens in Fire and Blood, but ultimately they made it clear that they're honoring Daemon and Laena because their ancestors were Aegon the Conqueror, and he helped the Pentoshi out fight against some of the other free cities when they were in a bind, right? So after he does that, he decides it doesn't tell us what made Aegon want to conquer Westeros, unite the Seven Kingdoms, but ultimately he just decides one day, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do it, right? He beforehand does tour a few of the places in the Seven Kingdoms. Like he goes to Old Town with Visenya. Is potentially he visited other parts of the Reach. Ultimately, when he starts to conquer Westeros, Aegon the Conqueror, he doesn't really have a massive army. He sort of has to amass that, and that's what makes him such a great ruler, right? So initially, he's got some defiance, right? But he quickly wipes them out. I can't remember exactly which people opposed him, but it's basically this ragtag team of individuals who sort of team up together to try to take him out, but they fail miserably, right? But ultimately, he has a big showdown with this dude named Harren the Black, right, at Harrenhal. Now, Harren the Black initially is an Iron Islander, but he's also got, if I'm not mistaken, on his mother's side, talking about Harren the Black, has some blood of the River Kings. The River Kings were individuals, mostly House Tully, who ruled the Trident, which is like, the Riverlands is one of the Seven Kingdoms. And those dudes, in Harren the Black's time, the people around the Riverlands really did not mess with him. The main reason being is because Harrenhal itself is the biggest castle in all of the Seven Kingdoms. For instance, Winterfell has a great hall, and it's got like one big hearth. Harrenhal has like 9, right? When Jaime's visiting there in A Feast for Crows, and he's sort of walking around the ruins of Harrenhal, he thinks like, holy crap, this castle's so big. And it's just, everything in it is in excess. It's sort of like overdone, right? So during his time, during Harren the Black's time, when he was building Harrenhal, he can't just create this castle out of nothing. He's got to steal, right? He's an Ironborn. That's what they do. They rape and reave and pillage, right? So he pillaged a village. He pillaged all the villages. He stole stone from them. He took gold. He just did what he wanted to for something like 40 years while this castle was being built. So when Aegon came over, and he's like, yo, Riverlands, bend the knee. It wasn't hard for him to find allies of Riverlords who didn't mess with Harrenhal. Didn't mess with Harren the Black, because he's been fucking with him for years. So, Aegon has this big standoff with Harren the Black, and their exact words are taken down because there's a macer present. So they say, cool ass lines, like basically Harren the Black's like, oh, you got fire, you got dragons, but stone doesn't burn. I'm gonna be in my keep. And Aegon's like, all right, you dead. All of y'all are gonna die. Like basically he says, when the sun comes up, I'm gonna melt you to the ground. All of your sons, everybody's gonna die, right? So dawn comes and there's no Aegon. At least they think, right? But what Aegon did was fly so high up in the air, no one could see him. It was said that he flew so high, his dragon looked like an ant across the moon. And if you know anything about his dragon, Balerion the Black Dread, that's the biggest dragon of all time. So the fact that he flew that high and was well inside the walls of Harrenhal before descending made this maneuver genius, right? So then he comes down, dragon screeches, and the Balerion's fires are so hot, it probably did what Drogon's flames did on the TV show, explode stone. No, I'm just kidding. Can't do that. But yeah, so during this time, there's this dude who's his right-hand man, Aegon, right? So obviously he kills Harrenhal. He melts Harrenhal, kills Harren the Black. Everybody from that line is dead until like a few generations later, where this one guy claims to be descended from a nephew of something, right? Harren the Red or whatever, right? But that's unimportant. There's this dude who is the first ever Hand of the King, right? Orys Baratheon. Now, Orys is rumors that he's actually a half-brother of Aegon, right? It was a long time ago. Even in the House of the Dragon TV show's timeline, because it's 130 years before that, right? They're in year 130 AC, so 130 years after Aegon's conquest. So this is 130 years after Orys Baratheon and Aegon existed. So there's no proof, so to speak. But you got to realize Targaryens would spread their seed everywhere, right? That's something that's common knowledge, because we have an event known as the Calling of the Dragon Seeds, where Rhaenyra and her forces decide they want to get more dragon riders for their cause, right? It's the Greens versus the Black in the Dance of the Dragons. So the idea that Orys can be half Targaryen is very possible, right? Especially when you realize that Aegon didn't have that many people when he was trying to conquer Westeros. Like, he didn't have a massive army. He had to amass that. He had his 3 dragons, right? So his dragon Balerion, and then his 2 sister wives, Visenya and Rhaenys, and their dragons, Meraxes and Vhagar, we see in House of the Dragon, right? That's kind of all he had, and a small ragtag team of armies, but he had this dude Orys. So it's kind of, Orys didn't ride a dragon. Kind of makes you wonder, like, of course he would trust someone who's related to him, because he's kind of only trusting people at this time that are related to him, right? Because he sends Visenya and Rhaenys to go and treat with different parts of the kingdom, right? Visenya, if I'm not mistaken, goes to the Vale and gets all those dudes to submit and surrender, and Rhaena does a similar thing. She starts setting up marriages and stuff, right? Rhaenys, rather. So it kind of makes sense. George doesn't specifically come out and say, yeah, this dude Rhaegar Baratheon is Aegon's brother, because that's not his style of writing, right? He'd rather leave it a mystery, but then when he really wants to confirm something, he'll fill in a lot of back stuff, a lot of back history to that event that will further prove that happened, right? So my opinion, he does this with Fagon. Everybody calls him Fagon because when Tywin first took King's Landing, he told the Mountain to kill Elliot's children, and the Mountain is a savage, and he did. He killed Elliot's children, right? But Varys tells us that he knew this, he kind of knew this was going to happen, so he actually snuck away the real Aegon, right? So this is Rhaegar's heir. Rhaegar is the heir. He's the Prince of Dragonstone at this time. He was never crowned. Like, the events of Robert's Rebellion happened too quickly, so he's never crowned. Ultimately, at the tourney at Harrenhal, there were rumors that Rhaegar was kind of going to usurp the crown from his father, the Mad King Aerys, because Aerys is kind of a tyrant at this point, and Rhaegar just wanted to let everybody know, I've got a level head on my shoulders, right? I'm not like my dad, right? That's kind of what he was going to do. I don't necessarily think that he was going to kill his dad, but maybe restrict his power to the point where, like, he kind of forcibly removes him, right? Removes all power near him. But that didn't actually happen, because guess what? Aerys the Mad King decides to go with Rhaegar because he hears rumors of that happening. And he hears the rumors from all people, Varys. So you kind of don't really know who Varys is working for. But Varys mentions that he potentially has snuck away Aegon, right? And then Tyrion runs into Aegon in A Dance with Dragons in his POV chapters when he's in Essos making his way to Daenerys. Illyrio Mopatis initially was working with Varys, and that's how Tyrion was whisked away in the middle of the night thanks to Jaime. And, Jaime let him out of his cell. And when Tyrion gets to Essos, he goes with, the chat's finally popping up. Cool. He goes with Illyrio Mopatis, and Varys kind of disappears, right? He shows back up. He doesn't show back up, rather, until the epilogue of A Dance with Dragons in Kevin's one POV. Kevin is Tywin's brother, and it's dope. I actually fuck with Kevin a lot. I like him a lot because I feel like that little epilogue that we got in Dance with Dragons, he was going to be a good version of Tywin. Tywin has some good points that he makes, but the way he executes things is terrible, right? So, anyway, Kevin, in his epilogue chapter, the one POV that he gets, epilogue is obviously after the book finishes, and there's like a little bit more. It's like an encore, kind of. If you're at a concert, you want your band to come back out and play some more music. So Varys shows up then and kills him. He literally kills him the same way Tywin dies. He shoots a bolt through his chest, and then Kevin is stabbed to death by the little birds. That's actually exactly what happened on the TV show, if I'm not mistaken. If Varys didn't show... No, I don't think Varys did it. I think... I don't think he showed up in the TV show. I think he just had his little birds do it, right? And it was Qyburn. It was Qyburn's manipulations, machinations. So I can't remember exactly. I know the books far too well and I often confuse things. TV show is still the greatest show of all time. I don't mean to make it sound like I'm down talking the TV show. But anyway, getting way back on track here, I feel like all of the examples that we got of people sneaking out of King's Landing, and even though George initially says that Maegor's Holdfast is a castle within a castle, there's no way out, all the people that knew the way out were killed, we get examples all throughout the story that was written after the main story, after, we hear that Fagon is a character, potentially, young Griff. Griff is a POV. John Connington raised him. John Connington was Rhaegar's best friend, but he was also the hand of the king for the Mad King, Aerys, temporarily until the Mad King removes him. Basically, John Connington could have ended the war because he had Robert trapped in this town, and he sort of jumps the gun and fucks it up, and Robert's able to escape and get away because, John Connington's an idiot. So he goes into exile, and he goes to fight with the Golden Company at first, but then he disappears when we assume, this was never actually confirmed, but we assume, confirmation we get is Varys and Illyrio saying, yeah, we gave baby Aegon to John Connington. Who better to raise baby Aegon, Rhaegar's son, than his best friend, John Connington, right? And there's a bunch of people that think John Connington's gay. George kind of alludes at it in the sense, like, when you're reading John Conn's POV, he sort of thinks, like, Elia Martell isn't good enough for Rhaegar, right? And he thinks about how Rhaegar played the harp beautifully. To me, I think the main thing is how he thinks, like, a woman wasn't good enough for him. Because guess what? Cersei thinks that same thing. And she wanted to get with him. She was supposed to get with Rhaegar, but she doesn't. But she kind of always loves Rhaegar. She's constantly comparing individuals that in her life that are potentially male partners to Rhaegar, right? She specifically, obviously, she does it in the... Is it a Feast for Crows? The bastard Velaryon. Obviously, the Velaryons look like the Targaryens, and she thinks that the bastard Velaryon kind of looks like Rhaegar. But anyway, it's very similar to Robert always being in love with Lyanna, and Cersei hates him for that. But it's interesting because she kind of feels that same way about Rhaegar. So anyway, I think it's hard for me to not believe that the Aegon thing happened because, like I was sort of getting at, the points that I keep making before I get sidetracked. George gives us all these examples of people that are able to easily sneak out of the Red Keep and out of King's Landing and go across the Narrow Sea or just go do something and then return, right? So in my opinion, Varys shows us that he knows the way underneath because he, helps Tyrion escape. He definitely could have saved the little boy, so this potentially could really be actually Aegon, right? So, in my opinion, House Baratheon, right? The first member of House Baratheon being Rhaegar, descends directly from the Targaryens, right? And there are several times where the Baratheons and the Targaryens intermarry. So you kind of, it's well established in the books, but like I said, not so much in the TV show. Robert has a fair amount of Targaryen blood. And then also, you got to realize that Rhaegar ends up marrying the people who are in power in the Stormlands at the time, House Durrandon. They're the people that built Durran's Defiance, Storm's End, right? So Rhaegar takes his daughter as a wife, and ever from that point forward, House Baratheon is mixed with House Durrandon, who are the Storm Kings. Remember, I was mentioning the River Kings earlier. It's like all these different locations have different kings, because remember, there's 7 petty kingdoms until Aegon comes over and unites everybody. So you have individuals, like in the Stormlands, that declared themselves king of the Stormlands, and those individuals are this house called House Durrandon, and Argilac the Defiant is the one who is in power when Aegon comes over. And he kind of does the same thing that Harren the Black does, which is defy Aegon openly. So when Aegon does wipe him out, he places his half-brother, Orys. Is it Orys? And I was saying Rogar. Yeah, it is Orys. Rogar is the dude who marries Jaehaerys' mom after her husband dies from Maegor the Cruel. So yeah, I said that wrong a couple times. Anyway, Orys Baratheon is the actual dude that helps. He's the founding member of House Baratheon. He's Aegon's half-brother, and he, obviously helps him in the conquest. He ends up losing his hand. He's the first hand of the king. He loses his hand. But ultimately, like I said, Robert has a lot more Targaryen in him than his grandmother Rhaella, right? So one of the ways he's able to actually sit the Iron Throne is through his grandmother, who is a full-blooded Targaryen. I say full-blooded Targaryen because pretty much if you're over half Targaryen, you're pretty full-blooded. Their genes, their DNA are pretty concentrated. So Rhaenys in House of the Dragon is Baratheon, and she has this really cool hair in the books. Like, it's mostly black, but she has like a streak of Targaryen hair. But by the time the war starts, she's actually full-on gray, so she looks like a full-on Targaryen. Which may be why the show decided to do that, which was just keep her Targaryen hair the whole time. I'm not sure. So you actually can't be mad at her for not, or mad at them for not giving her canon hair, because by the time the show actually starts, so at the end of season 1, she's supposed to look like how she looks. But yeah, so the whole point that I wanted to make, I wanted to establish Robert's connection. Yeah, establish Robert Baratheon connection to being a Targaryen. I think we established that, right? He's full on, potentially, not full on. He's obviously Baratheon, but Baratheon is Durrandon and Targaryen and whatever Orys is half of. And actually, Orys could have been, I don't want to go that far, right? But he could have been a full Targaryen, because potentially dragon seeds have existed since the Targaryens were in Dragonstone, so 12 years before the Doom of Valyria happens. But then also, it was a Valyrian trading post before that. So, Orys could descend from a line of Valyrian individuals from before the Targaryens even took over Dragonstone. So if that's the case, House Baratheon could be full-on, a lot more Valyrian than we think. And because, they have strong features in breeding, like, bred into their line through, obviously, black-haired Baratheons, but then also, the Durrandons, they descend from the female line of Durrandons, because Orys took Argilac the Defiant's daughter hand in marriage. So all the Baratheons that descend from him are related to the Durrandons on the female side, and when a lady has a baby, she passes more of her genetic sequence and her DNA and code onto the baby than the father does. So it could be as simple. It's kind of hard to figure out how genetics work in A Song of Ice and Fire. Preston Jacobs, everybody's all heard of that dude. He does like a massive, crazy in-depth videos on genetics and stuff and DNA of dragon riders or whatever. I remember I used to watch those when I first started here on YouTube, even before then. That was 7 years ago. So, you want to learn about some weird genetics in A Song of Ice and Fire, go watch those videos. I'm not that, attuned to those kinds of things. But I think it's possible that these Baratheons, my whole point in this, 24-minute spiel was that these Baratheons have a lot more Targaryen DNA than kind of like we think, right? The next thing that I wanted to mention was there's a prophecy that is sort of just mentioned in passing in Fire and Blood, and it goes something like, when the hammer shall fall on the dragon, right? And that's literally what happens when Robert fights Rhaegar at the Battle of the Trident. Ultimately, Rhaegar's his cousin, right? Because remember, Robert's grandmother directly is a Targaryen. Not only does he have all that other Targaryen DNA in him, but his grandmother was a full-on Targaryen. And also, Targaryens and Baratheons have married back and forth so many times since Aegon's conquest. It's kind of like it's hard to track all of that stuff, right? It's just, it's kind of very poetic, waxing poetic, that we have the line from King Viserys, the only thing that can destroy the House of the Dragon is the dragon itself, right? The hammer is the dragon. So that was, when I was thinking about doing this live stream, I was like, this is going to be beautiful when I say all these things and I make this rant just seem natural, and then I put a bow on top of it by saying, look, the Targaryens, that prophecy of them only being able to, they're the only ones that can destroy themselves. It went a lot better in my head. But that was the point of this part, right? I'm gonna jump into the chat now, but that was the whole thing. Like, you have a Targaryen destroying the Targaryens. Beautiful, right? I am very intelligent. All right. So let me see. I can't really see. Oh wait, no, I can. Let's see. Robert Gurney, yo. Kolnitsky, yo. Headless Ned Stark, yo. Mixed Queen Destiny Phillips 420. All right, here we go. Matthew Stewart, Triton 54. That's my boy. The North must remember. He is a. Oh yeah, shout out to every single member of my Patreon family. Specifically, the North must remember Breanne Johnson and Tyler Schnabel. They're all executive producers of these videos. If you want to join my Patreon, consider checking it out. It's linked down below in the description. But if you don't want to, that's fine. It's completely fine. Thank you for watching me here on YouTube. If you want to watch my videos ad-free, you can join for my channel members for like $1. I made a post in the community section that was supposed to go just for the people that are members, channel members here, but it was public, and people submitted comments, and I'm going to read those here in a few minutes. But yeah, just know that if you do join, you get perks like that. Also, you get the link to my Discord, which I should give the link to my Discord to everybody watching right now, because I'm going to do that. We got like 30 people on my Discord. Always want to invite more people. So let me copy this. But that's one of the perks, right? But you people watching right now, you're watching me. So thank you for doing that. So I'm going to drop the link to my Discord if anybody watching wants to join. To me, it kind of seems crazy to charge people to join a Discord. Like, I'll talk to anybody. Send me a message on social media. I'll talk to anybody. But yeah. So what was the comment that I was about to read? Matthew Stewart says, how's it going, man? Just discovered your channel. Well, thank you, Matthew Stewart. Welcome. Been doing a reread of A Song of Ice and Fire because I got the Winds of Winter fever. You've got some great content here. Well, thank you. Let me give you a heads up. I probably am bipolar. I've never been diagnosed with it, but I kind of self-diagnosed myself with that. Also, I think I have a slight case of autism and ADHD. But what that means is that sometimes I'll be in a mood when I'm making a video or when I'm doing a live stream. And when I'm talking about Winds of Winter stuff, consistently I'm excited. But if you go far enough back, you'll realize my content was absolute shit. So if you do go back that far and you see that, have faith. It's going to continue to get better. But there's some shit going on that I'm working through myself. It's all in my head. But yeah, I think the format that I'm doing now is probably, it's not the best, right? Like, it doesn't take me the longest to make these videos, but I feel like I'm getting to the point where I'm like in a groove. So thank you for joining, Matthew Stewart. Triton 54 says, sup, my man? Sorry I'm late. No big deal. It's you're actually perfect on time. Thank you for being here. North must remember. Justin Belcher says, I was about to say, you mean Ori's? Yes, I did. Yes, sorry. I caught myself, though. I'm like, something about it didn't feel right when I'm talking about, I said it twice or 3 times maybe, and the third time I said it, I was like, wait, that doesn't make sense, because Rogar is the dude that gets confronted when Jaehaerys confronts him and lets him know, like, basically, Jaehaerys' mother is older, and she gives Rogar Baratheon a child, right? But Jaehaerys and Alysanne and their sister Rhaena, they know that their mother's past childbearing ages, right? She's had all of them, and she's also gave him a child, and then she gets pregnant again. So there's this scene, and Rogar kind of does a dick thing. He tries to pull all the power towards him, and he ends up getting checked by Jaehaerys. Like, Jaehaerys and Alysanne sort of had to escape to marry. But this dude Rogar, it's really cool. There's this cool scene that him and Jaehaerys are talking in this courtyard, and Jaehaerys is like, you see that dragon right there? And Rogar's like, yes. And Jaehaerys is like, he's growing every year, and then he feeds him, right? Like, he doesn't feed Rogar to his dragon, but he just, like, sort of pets him, and he lets him know Vermithor, the Bronze Fury, will keep you in check, kind of. It's cool. But yeah, so eventually he gets Jaehaerys' mom pregnant again, and she dies during childbirth. And they actually did that on House of the Dragon with Aemma Arryn, Rhaenyra's mom, right? So that doesn't actually happen the way it does on the TV show. And instead, just George mentions in passing, Aemma dies giving childbirth. She gave birth to a stillborn. A few times she dies, right? Ultimately giving birth to Balon, right? They don't say that it's like this thing where there's a choice that's being made, like you could say the child. They kind of added that stuff, but it made it so much more intense. And I remember, that was the first episode of House of the Dragon. I remember thinking, well, there's not going to be as many titties on this show because obviously times change. Suckily, in my opinion, I feel like HBO was all about nudity, right? There should totally be more titties on House of the Dragon. I'm down for that. But also, you realize, a lot of the times those actresses may have not necessarily have done that, right? My whole thing is you don't have somebody do that doesn't want to. Pay someone who's comfortable enough to doing that, because there are women that are 100% comfortable enough with showing their titties off for some money. For instance, no, I'm not going to make that point, right? But that was what I was referring to. Matthew Stewart, the dude who just joined. I'll say shit like that in a live stream and in a video, and people will be off-put by that. And they're like, yo, this guy is crass. I don't fuck with him anymore. That's what happens. I'll just say some stuff like that. I don't mean to. I don't mean it. I'm trying to be funny, right? I can hide behind a comic shield. Like, anything I say that might be out of the pocket, I'm trying to be funny. Of course, it's going to be crass. But yeah. Thank you for calling me out, my boy Justin. Yes, I 100% meant Ori's, not Rogar. Sorry. Dennis Sorensen, what's up, my dude? He says, what's up, Sir Hunts? Not much, not much. Mitchell McCormick says, what's up, Mark? Nothing much. How you doing? Matthew Stewart says, fingers crossed we get to see Dunk face down Lionel Baratheon one day in a new Dunk and Egg novella. I hope we get more Night of the Seven Kingdoms, but I would, everybody sound cliche as hell saying this, but I'm sure we all want Winds of Winter, myself included. I want that before any written material. Potentially, I'd take Fire and Blood Part 2, because some of the mysteries that are brought up in Fire and Blood Part 1 can only be answered by Fire and Blood Part 2 coming out, potentially the Tragedy of Summerhall. But the way that George has set up the story, Fire and Blood Part 2 is not going to come out until the Dunk and Egg novels are completed, because Dunk dies at the Tragedy at Summerhall, right? Obviously, Egg causes the Tragedy at Summerhall. That's one of the questions that my patrons asked, so I'll be talking about that here in a second, too. So it's kind of like he can't write Fire and Blood until he writes this other stuff, but he can't write that other stuff until he gives us Winds of Winter. The man's got a full plate, and I think he likes that. You know what I mean? Hey, man, just be you, love the earnest. Well, thank you, Matthew. Thank you. Crystal Mixon says, we got full frontal male nudity with Theon seasons. Yes, but that's male nudity. Yeah, obviously, there's females and males that like that, but I prefer titties. I like titties. I'm an ass guy. If you ask me that, I'll say that. But then if someone's got huge titties, I'll look at that too. You know what I mean? But You remember in the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones, there were more titties than there were any other body part. And then they just kind of got rid of that. And I think one of the ways Dan and Dave was able to do that is by hiring porn stars. They obviously don't. They don't have a problem showing their stuff on screen. But there's just less nudity in general with House of the Dragon. But that's the point that I was going to make that I kind of forgot was that I remember thinking like, modern day times is going to affect certain ways the story is told, also certain things they depict on screen. But ultimately I was like, yeah, there's going to be way less titties. And then also Alicent, the actress who plays her, Olivia Cook, mentioned something like there's not going to be, and this was probably like a year and a half or 2 years ago now, so it was a while before the show even came out, but she mentioned there's not going to be unnecessary depictions of female violence, right, in the show. And that comment kind of sent the internet ablaze because they're like, hold up, what do you mean? This show depicts violence towards both male and female, and it doesn't show preferential treatment, right? It treats them equally, and that's how the world should be. Everybody should be treated equally. The problem is that they aren't, and that's a lot of the issues that we have in society, is that like when you say someone should be treated equal, it's like, what does that mean? Like should I make more money because the job that I'm doing requires more of something that I'm good at? So maybe a woman who's doing the same thing, like it just brings in a bunch of shit, right? But you have to be sort of equal to everybody. But yeah, the comment that she made kind of made everybody go crazy. But then obviously the show comes out, and then you have crazy scenes like the Emma Aaron birth scene. That was the whole point that I wanted to make there. J.S. Holgerson says Yiddies, Crystal mixing Tego biddies, mixed Queen Destiny filled titties. J.S. Holgerson, titties. Carlo Wagner, love your content, watching all the way from Belize. Oh wow, Belize, where the BZ, is that Brazil? Belize isn't in Brazil, I know that. That's dope, thank you. What time is it over there in Belize? Is it? Are you guys after? It's 7:40 here on the east coast of the United States, Eastern Standard Time. Crystal Mix, and never forget Roz. Oh, I don't forget her at all. Like, you guys want to hear a funny story about me and Roz, the actress who plays Roz, right? There's this little old thing called Con of Thrones, and at this Con of Thrones, it's a convention of Thrones, literally Game of Thrones. They have different actors and actresses come and do like autograph signings and do panels and stuff. And one year, I think it was the 2018, so the second Con of Thrones, they had Roz, right? For some reason, her name, the actress's name, is slipping my mind right now, but I swear to God, right before I started to jack off yesterday, I looked at pictures of her, because sometimes I like to do that. And I remembered her name then, but I can't now, so anyway, that's embarrassing. Anyway, she was at the part of the event where you go to get pictures taken and signed and stuff, and the booth had closed down. So like, because I was kind of hanging out with people that were allowed to be in this little like marketplace area after it closed down, because it was people that were in there selling their merch and stuff. And then obviously there were some of the actors that were taking pictures with people, just kind of hanging out. And it was because it was closed. Like, I think the marketplace hours were like a certain time, and then it closed at like 5 or something, because all the people that were vending the stuff in there, plus the actors and stuff, they had to go about their day, right? So I was just hanging out in there with I think 2 people that were selling anime art, Blaze Manga, right? And this other dude, Kyle's a YouTuber, and then I can't remember, it was a person that came with Kyle, right? He's friends with me on Facebook. He does, I was just looking at his profile the other day or a couple weeks ago or something. He does like movie reviews. Also can't remember his name. I want to say Patrick for some reason. I know it's not Patrick. But anyway, we see Roz sitting over there hanging out. And they're like, yo, you should go ask her for a picture. Or just like see if she wants to take a picture. And I was like, yeah, but that costs like $100. And I was like, I don't have $100. And they're like, no, I don't think they were like, they convinced me. They were like, I don't think she would charge you to do that. But I was such a pussy that I was like, nah, I'm not going to. And then I watched someone do it. I watched a random person walk up to her and say, hey, can I have a picture? She gave him a hug, took a picture, right? Still didn't do it because I'm a pussy. So that's my story with Roz. I was probably 15 to 20 feet away from her like Theon. And I could have been like, show me your... let me see one more time, right? Let me see for the road. Right? But I didn't. And I didn't. My boy from Belize said Belize, Central America. What time is it, though? 6:43 in Texas, 5:42 in Belize. Oh, there we go. We border with Mexico. Nice. Kolnitsky said 2:42 here. Where are you at? You're 4 hours behind me. Carla Wagner. Oh, wait. You're in Belize. 1:40 a.m. in Sweden. Holy hell. Are you on Greenwich Main Time? Greenwich Main Time? Wait, because they're 5 hours ahead of me. So it's 12:44. Well, no, because my buddy Billy Bob from Scotland said it would be like 11 something. So I don't know. The times change. We need all one world time. What if everywhere, everything all at once, like the movie, it was all the same time? Why isn't that a thing? Is it because some of us would have the sun up and it'd be, 4 in the morning or whatever, and then other people would be 2 in the afternoon, but the sun would be down? Or is that why? Like, who cares? That totally doesn't make me sound insane. 4:44 Cali time. Yes, 3 hours behind me. St. Petersburg, Russia. Is that where you are? Where it's 2:42. So Russia, what is that? That's not Greenwich Mean Time. They're 5 hours behind. And then Australia, they're like 12 hours ahead of us. What is the time in St. Petersburg called, potentially? Is it Flushki time? No, I'm just kidding. Just trying to make up a Russian word. Can't really do that. What's this? Matthew Stewart says, credit to the woman who played Shay. She was a pornographic actor. And she could actually show up and hold scenes with yeah, she's amazing. I know I say this all the time, but I actually got to meet her. And I can't really see the chat in the stream. Let me change the color of this real quick. But yeah, I got to meet her. I gave her a hug. So yeah, that's cool. So that should make the chat boxed, which will make it, you'll be able to see it with Robert. I don't know why it disappears. It really shouldn't do that. But it should pop back up. If it doesn't, I'll delete it and bring a new chat window in. But yeah, I got to meet her. She's amazing. She's really sweet. Sybil Kikili is dope. I remember she liked my take on her character, which was something that she said she didn't get that often. She said that she read comments online, or maybe she met people one time, and that's what it was. She said she had met obviously people ask her for pictures all the time, but she told me specifically there was these one people that were like, she was with Peter Dinklage, and like, they were kind of, they said something that was kind of mean to her or something because of how her character was. And I was like, who the fuck would do that? You're an idiot. Why would you do that? It's a fake character on the TV show. And if you actually hate the character a lot, that stands to how talented the actor is, because they made you hate a fake person, right? But yeah, I don't know. My take was that I had never read the books at this time. I used to pretend to read the books, and I think I actually lied to Sybil Kikili, and I was like, yeah, I've read the books, right? But I have now. I've read them. I'm on my A3 read. But my take was that on the TV show, Shay genuinely did love Tyrion, whereas in the books, that's not the case. But you could actually make a case for it. She just kind of is a child, right? So in the books, Tyrion is like 27, 28. Shay is like 18 or 19, right? On the TV show, Peter Dinklage is in his 30s. Shae is grown. They're both grown, right? So it's kind of a different dynamic. But the reason why people will blanketly say that Shae in the books didn't really love Tyrion is because, well, one, she is with Tywin, and then what she says at Tyrion's trial, which is totally nonsense and didn't happen. It was one-sided. She warped the whole relationship that she has with Tyrion. She says stuff like, he forced me to do this, he forced me to do, like what she does in the TV show. But ultimately, the dynamic is different in the sense that, like, when you watch them on screen in a scene, you're like, okay, this is a normal relationship in the sense that they're both the same age. It's a little bit perverted in the books because Tyrion keeps thinking, my sweet Shae, she's only 18, like perfect, because she's not old enough to know how stupid I am. And he even thinks that with Penny, right? He even thinks that about Penny. He's like, Penny, my perfect woman. She's too young to know any better. But yeah, so the reason why people say that is those two reasons. What she says at the trial and how she's immediately with Tyrion, right? But then also there's some other incidences where after the Battle of the Blackwater, beforehand, Tyrion has her living in a manse in King's Landing. He buys her a house with like stone walls. He keeps a guard at her door at all times. He goes through sneaky shit to get her. He's never, like when he goes with her, he tries to keep her as safe as possible. He never wants Cersei to see him getting with her because ultimately Cersei will have a one-up on him. Tyrion really does love Shae, right? But in his journey afterwards, he realized, no, he loved the idea of Shae, which is that there's this woman who, like, is super witty, and she's mentally, she may be physically only 18 or whatever, but she's like a match for me because we can banter back and forth, and like, he likes your pussy. She's got nice tits, right? He likes that too, right? So that's kind of what he thinks those are the reasons why he loves her, and he figures that out afterwards through his journey of like being a slave and like also his whole life being a dwarf, right? He's forced to be very brutally honest with himself, which is why people like reading Tyrion. It's funny, I was just reading his first POV, or like when he sort of has an interaction in Jon's second or maybe third POV, not just because the POVs technically restart themselves when a book starts, but this is like Jon's first ever POV because it's in a Game of Thrones, right? But I love talking about this, but Jon's kind of he gets really drunk and his Uncle Benjen makes him storm off. Robert has just came up north to have Ned come down south to be his hand, right? So Jon Snow in his POV is having a conversation with his Uncle Benjen, and actually his Uncle Benjen says several things that made me think Benjen could be his father, right? He tells Benjen, I want to join the Night's Watch. I'm a man. I'm 14. And it's because he's drunk at the feast, right? And Benjen's like, nigga, get the fuck out of here. Go have some bastards yourself. Father a few bastards yourself, and then let me know what you think. Because, like, he literally tells him, like, dude, don't be a virgin. And then don't be a virgin, and then see if you want to do this, right? Because you can't take women's. But Benjen is also not really being honest with himself because he could easily go to Molestown, which is what people do at the Night's Watch. They go to Molestown and hook up with some wildling wenches, right? They go take care of their needs, right? So Benjen basically tells him, like, man, you better go get some pussy first before you decide you won't give it up, right? You know what I mean? And then Jon pushes Benjen, and Benjen's like, man, go father a few bastards. Like, be a man first. And Jon's like, man, fuck you, I'm a man. And Jon, like, literally gets up, has tears in his eyes, and storms off. So when he does that, he's outside with Ghost, and then he looks up, and he sees our boy Tyrion. Tyrion's sitting on this ledge, like, 2 stories up, and Tyrion says something to Jon. He's like, yo, does your wolf bite? And Jon's like, nope. Because, Jon's drunk, right? And he's 14. He's, 14-year-old boy. Like, I say that. I was about to say a comment like, he's 14, he's getting drunk. Oh, shame. But, like, I was getting fucking hammered. At 15, my dad asked me what I wanted for my birthday, and I told him 151. So he, as a dumbass, went to the ABC, as a cool dad, right? As a teenager, you think that's a cool dad. He went to the ABC store and got me 151, and I was throwing up all night, but I had my friends over, so it was cool, right? So Jon is like being, hey, I'm big, I got big dick, right? So it's funny because Tyrion says, like, yo, is your wolf gonna bite? Is your dog gonna bite? And Jon's like, he would, but I trained him. It's hilarious. It's really funny to me because that line is like perfect. Jon is like showing you his age. George wrote it really well, right? I was just checking the chat to make sure the audio didn't go out or anything. But anyway, John is like, very much showing you that he's a moody teenager. He's like, he will, but not because I'm here, right? So then Tyrion, get this, does a somersault. He leaps up into midair and does what I do on trampolines, which, if you want to see what I can do on a trampoline, go follow me on social media, right? You can follow me on social media, _Hunts_reviews. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at @Hunts and on Facebook. I have actually have 2 Facebook pages, not intentionally, but one is a Facebook page, and the other one is like a business page. For whatever reason, when I made my normal Facebook page, the one where people can add me as a friend, Facebook told me that I'm not allowed to do that to like promote. So I ended up making another one, and I don't know how to delete the pages. So I have 2, but you can please like the one and then add me as a friend on the other one. If you have social media. But yeah, so basically Tyrion does this ridiculous thing, and George goes back and mentions how he says several times he wishes he didn't include that. But when you're reading it, it is kind of jarring. If it's your first time reading it, not really. It's your first time reading Game of Thrones, you're like, holy this is awesome, because Tyrion's gonna be a little badass, and then me being me, I've looked up before what it would look like if a midget does a backflip, right? Of course. And when I say that, I mean little person. Somebody told me recently that midget apparently is offensive. I had no idea. That's a medical terminology thing. It's like retarded. You can't say that anymore, but the timing on my engine is retarded. There's nothing wrong with me saying that because the timing on my engine at one point was retarded, right? But anyway, little person, I've looked it up before. I've looked it up and dude, right, that said, sorry, Matthew Stewart, this is one of the reasons why I say careful before you make your decision of if you want to stay. Because I realize I just said like 5 things that are offensive, but I'm not. I'm trying to be funny, and I'm trying to explain a point, which is, anyway, my first time reading it, I was like, this is going to be awesome, because Tyrion in the books is apparently a ninja. And then I remembered the point that I was just trying to make is that I've looked up what it looks like when a little person tries to do a backflip, and it's impossible. You can find some, and I think one of them is a wrestler. He's wearing like a black mask. That's one of my favorite ones. But it's just highly improbable and impractical for a little person to try to maneuver themselves like a gymnast does. And it's actually interesting because I went to cheer camp. It was called cheer camp, but it was like we just jumped around trampolines and stuff and did like floor exercise and stuff for like 2 summers in a row, right? So, my point was most of the people that do that, like the gymnast, female and male, tend to usually be shorter stature, especially the ones that do the floor stuff. They're usually short as hell. So you would think, no, but then you think of the physical things that a little person deals with, and that's, limb, like, issues. They have swollen joints. It was kind of tied into the whole point that I was trying to make of why Tyrion is such an interesting character, is because at first that's kind of how George makes him. But then when he has his POVs, you learn quickly, he's got these debilitating conditions. If shit really was to hit the fan, he'd be screwed. Ultimately, the reason why he survives the Battle of the Blackwaters, thanks to his horse, thanks to his escort, trained individuals that he has around him at all times. Yes, he goes savage. Yes, he gets battle mode, blood rage, but ultimately, Tyrion has been injured 3 or 4 different times. Like, remember, he has his nose cut off. But also, at the Battle of the Blackwater, he takes a spiked mace to the... Wait, no. Does he... He first gets his arm hurt when Tywin puts him in the flank. Tywin puts him in the worst spot ever in a Game of Thrones, right? And that's when he has the Mountain Clan individuals escort him from the trial that he has in the Vale to go to his father's encampment. He first hurts his arm there. Then he hurts his arm again at the Battle of Blackwater. He takes a spike ball to his shoulder joint. And I think he just remembers thinking to himself, like, this is extremely painful and it's going to hurt. And then when he has his nose cut off, it's like his arm still hurts. So, like, he's going through some stuff. And also when he's a slave, obviously, like, he kind of gets hurt a little bit when Tyrion and Penny well, obviously he's Tyrion, when Penny and him are practicing jousting on Dog and Pretty Pig. So yeah, let me get back on focus, not necessarily on track. Also, I've seen a couple good questions pop up in the chat. Let me read those real quick. Gotta refresh. Is that Wednesday or Tuesday? Missy W, can you tell me what that's in reference to? Sorry, I'm reading that really late. Sir Bounce. Triton54, my boy, the North must remember. Please go follow him. Go subscribe to him here on YouTube. He says got a great idea for next week's stream. I'll DM you on Twitter tomorrow. Awesome. I'm actually, I have a couple of streams planned in advance. Like I was gonna be doing Aegon 2 as like the main talking point tonight, but my buddy Robert from Indie Geek is doing Aegon 2. I think this week or next week maybe. And obviously he, like I'm not gonna do a similar topic to him because like why would you know what I mean? So I switched it. So I'm doing the Robert one, and then next week I was gonna look and see and make sure his wasn't next week, but I was either gonna do Aegon 2 or this other one that I have like another in-depth Targaryen one. It's kind of like what I did called like Targaryens Greater Than Human or whatever. It was one of my live streams that I did that was the longest one. It was like 3 hours and 47 minutes. I was going to do like a follow-up to that one next week, if not the Aegon 2 one. But I'll definitely check my DM, and I owe you several videos from several months of you not making topic suggestions, so for sure we're going to get that in. Also, yes, please go follow me on Twitter, Sir Hunt's Reviews. If you have a Twitter account. If not, thank you for watching me here on YouTube, because you know, not everybody does all social media. A couple people made a good point when I was talking about that in my leaked video. They were asking, you know, I stay on YouTube, but I follow you here. And honestly, I respect the hell out of that because you don't need to. I asked to do that just to increase my presence, right? So it's not like I'm saying you get anything out of it because you don't. Sometimes when I have contests, you'll get something out of it. But ultimately, I try to do that because when I started, that was something that everybody said you got to do. You got to, you know, have a presence on all the platforms. And I do. I also have a TikTok one that I don't promote really at all. I've had 2 videos get like 2,000 views on TikTok. But also, I have another channel that I don't promote that often here on YouTube as like a backup channel that I made. It's got I uploaded 1 video, but like 5 or 6 different shorts there. Shorts are apparently the way that YouTube content is going. Brett Humphrey says, Sir Hunts, didn't you smoke a cig with Gendry one time? Hell yeah. So not technically, right? So I was outside, right? And he was talking to a group of people. I think a couple of them were people that he worked with on Game of Thrones, but most of them were just fans. And I was already standing out there. And apparently he had already been like going out there to smoke a cigarette back and forth a few times during the day. So I was intentionally sort of just chilling out there. Well, I fucking chain smoke, so I would smoke a cigarette like every 30 minutes to an hour or whatever. But anyway, he asked me for a lighter. So I was like, yo, here you go, dog. I gave him a lighter, and that was that. The person I was standing with was like, yo, let's go walk over there. I was like, man, I don't want to be like that guy who like follows people around. But I totally should have. Problem was, my thing was I wasn't already standing over there. So if I did walk over there, it would have looked like I followed him over there, which was totally what I wanted to do. But I didn't want Gendry to be like, hey, man, what the fuck are you doing, yeah? I'm going to just smash you with my fucking hammer while you're following me, yeah? You know, don't want to get in it. He kind of looks like he might be a soccer hooligan. Like soccer hooligans are basically it's the American terminology for gangsters over in the UK. And, you know, Gendry is probably my height, but also, what kind of story is that? Man, I fucked up Gendry because he was looking at me funny because I followed him over to the group that he was talking to because he asked me for a lighter, and I thought it would be cool. Your brain's rambling. Matt Smith says, know how I know you're gay? Please tell me. What? That's hilarious, dude. I haven't seen you in the live stream before that. Were you commenting earlier? So this dude might potentially be coming over. Let me know. Sorry, bad joke in reference to the cheer camp. Oh. Hey, yo, dude, you might say that, but you know how many girls are in cheer camp? A lot. You know how many girls I got from going to cheer camp? None. But one summer, I convinced my stepmom's brother, who's the same age as me, to do the summer camp thing, and this is how I convinced him. I was like, bro, you play football. Like, if you learn how to do the trampoline stuff. The reason why I wanted him to go with me, because I would felt less weird. Like, my sister could have gone, but she didn't want to. She's like, I'm not a fucking cheerleader. I'm like, you don't understand. It's just called that. You get to learn how to do backflips and jump on the trampoline. It's dope. It's actually the best summer camp or extracurricular activity you could get into if you want to do physical stuff. And I've always watched anime. I grew up watching old kung fu movies. When I watch someone, especially The Matrix, that's what got me to want to do it. I saw that you can run up the wall and do a backflip if you learn how to do it. The only place that you could learn how to do that is at cheer camps. That's why I want to do it. But that's actually really funny, Matt Smith. Matt Smith. My boy Damon. Shout out Jay Fox. Also, Jay Fox messaged me earlier. He said he couldn't comment on the live stream. Says I have to create a channel. Oh. Yeah, Jay Fox, my boy. Go follow him on Instagram. Please. JFox_art. My dude right here. Is it gonna focus? He does amazing stuff. Specifically, this right here. This is amazing. Let me show you up close. Look at this. This is amazing. This is premium quality. That's real. Man sent it to me. Yeah. From London. He's from out of the UK. So yeah. But yeah, he was saying he couldn't comment on the live stream. You gotta make an account, my boy. I think that's what you're talking about. I don't know, but yeah, go follow him. I'm doing giveaways right now on my Patreon. But he's allowing me to give away digital copies of his Song of Ice and Fire stuff and also other paintings. So that's really cool. But yeah, how did I get to talking about cheer camp? That was random. Missy W said, I was referring to the person that it is at 2 a.m. in the morning if they considered Wednesday. Oh, yeah. So you consider it tomorrow. All right. Well, sorry. I wasn't part of that conversation. Sorry about that. Matthew Stewart says, where do you see House Baratheon by the end of the series? Edric is really the only hope for them in the books. Stannis is surely on his way out. All right. So Edric Storm is... Well, he's actually Gendry. So what happens to Gendry in the TV show? Davos learns what Melisandre's going to do, right? And then he decides he wants to make Gendry go back to King's Landing because Davos's logic on the TV show is that, like, the Lannister soldiers are going to be looking for you. Ultimately, I'm going to send you back to the place where they would least expect you to be, right? So that's what happened on the TV show. What happens in the books is Gendry, the character Gendry, that never happens to, or at least hasn't happened yet. It's probably not going to happen. Basically, he's with Arya the whole time until they come across Brother Without Banners, and then he stays there. He becomes a blacksmith because that's kind of that's all he knows. And then in A Feast for Crows, Breanne runs into him. Ultimately, could be one of Brienne's last POV chapters. She doesn't have very many, but it could be one of her last ones because the last thing that happens to her is she's brought to Lady Stoneheart and is being lynched, and she's ultimately pushed with this dilemma of, like, she can save everyone there, which is her, Podrick, this dude Hyle Hunt, who's been beat to hell. He may potentially be almost dead or going to be maimed from his wounds that he received from the Brotherhood Without Banners under the direction of Lady Stoneheart, who's Catelyn Stark, right? The last thing that happens to her is, like, she's given a choice: go get Jaime, and bring him to justice, or you're gonna die right here, and so will everyone here, because Lady Stoneheart sees her. The last time she sees Brienne is when she tells her to go save her daughters, and then Catelyn dies at the Red Wedding, but then she's brought back to life. So when she's brought back to life, she's nowhere near her normal self, and all she wants to do is have revenge. So after she has her throat slit and she claws her own face out at the Red Wedding, they toss her in the books in the river for 3 days, and she sits in the river for 3 days, rotting, dead, and then she's brought back. That's nuts, all right? Like, when somebody like Beric dies, he's brought back immediately because Thoros is right there when he receives the deadly wounds, and he uses the powers of her lord to resurrect him immediately, right? But that doesn't happen with Catelyn. She's sitting in the river for 3 days, and then she's resurrected. So all she wants to do is wreak vengeance. So anyway, the last time we see Breanne until Jaime has 1 or 2 chapters in Dance with Dragons when he's in the Riverlands, and then Breanne shows up there. So ultimately, Breanne chose to go and trick Jaime, right? So Catelyn gives her the proposition of, I'm going to kill you and everyone you're with, because she's wearing Lannister armor, but most importantly, she has this sword, Oathkeeper, I think is what it's called on the TV show, but the sword that she has is ice reformed, and Jaime gives it to her just like in the TV show, because she's like, what better sword to protect Ned Stark's daughters than Ned Stark's sword? So when Catelyn sees her with that, it's got a lion's head pommel on it, and she's like, well, you're working for the Lannisters, even though I sent you to go and take Jaime back to the Lannisters and then to save my daughter? Like, what? Because Catelyn and Breanne went through some stuff. Like, ultimately, Breanne probably would have been executed because they thought she killed Renly, and she didn't, right? So, basically, the same thing happens on the TV show. Stannis' shadow baby shows up, kills Renly. Breanne and Catelyn are there in Renly's tent when he dies. And then Breanne immediately kills 2 other Rainbow Guardsmen. So Breanne looks really guilty. But under Catelyn's advice, she whisks her away to safety. And, like, Catelyn saves her life, kind of. So Catelyn gives her that mission to, like, save my daughters. And, the next time she sees her, she's got Lannister. She's got a Lannister sword. She's like, "You're working for, the Lannisters." Also, I see a comment from Mixed Queen Destiny Phillips 420. Shout out her. She's a mod. Also, she gave me this dragon back here in this House Targaryen hat, and also she's a member of my Patreon. Thank you for your support, Destiny. She says that's real, and I think that's in response to my gym camp stuff. Like or a cheerleading camp thing, summer camp. That's actually another reason. You made me think of that, because we watched Buffy, or you watched Buffy, I watched Buffy. I did watch it when it came out. That was another reason why I wanted. I was like, yo, I bet you I'll meet somebody that looks like Miss Buffy Summers in cheerleading camp. Actually, my girlfriend that I'm dating right now, we dated in high school, and the way that I introduced myself to her was I walked up to her in math class, and I was like, "Are you a cheerleader?" Because I had seen her like wearing like a cheerleading shirt or something, but I knew about whatever it was from going to cheerleading camp. So it actually did kind of get me to get some girls. But yeah, she was like, "Yes, I am a cheerleader." And I was like, "Yeah." I don't even remember the whole thing, but that's how that happened. Anyway, getting back on track. So yeah, Edric Storm, right? Is, even though I just explained all that other stuff with Catelyn Stark, the thing that happens with Edric Storm, who is Robert's bastard in the books, is he is hanging out. Basically, Stannis gets him from Storm's End because that's Robert's heir. And Stannis, I think's initial plan, or the reason why he wants to get Edric Storm is a known bastard of King Robert. King Robert's dead, and Stannis is saying that Renly usurped his crown, and like obviously the Lannister usurping his crown, because all of Robert's heirs are bastards, right? So all of Robert's heirs are bastards. They're bastards of Lannisters, because like they're bastards technically because Jaime and Cersei aren't married, right? But they're not his. All of the supposedly legitimate children are not his, right? So when you have known bastards of Robert Baratheon like Maya Stone, also Edric Storm, and Gendry. Well, Gendry's not a known bastard, but Edric was. Like, Edric was made, if I'm not mistaken, from Selyse. So Stannis marries Selyse, and Robert shows up for the wedding and fucks one of a Florent. And this is how Edric was made. And that's how some of the known bastards are known. It's like when King Robert shows up and he's like, I'm going to Pound Town. Everybody knows, like, from from the woman, that child is now one of Robert's, right? So Maya Stone is kind of, she's a character that's bringing food up to Robert Erie of the Vale, sickly, sweet Robin, right? And then she just is someone that Sansa runs into, and, like, you find out that Maya Stone is a bastard of Robert Baratheon when he visited the Vale. Jon Arryn was Robert's father, kind of, because Steffan sent him to go get fostered by Jon Arryn, just like Ned Stark. That's where he meets Ned Stark, so they're childhood children. So Maya Stone is one of Robert's oldest bastards, but Edric is one that he fathers on a Florent, if I'm not mistaken. Man, I could be wrong. This would be embarrassing. So Edric he's sort of like a prize that Storm's in that Stannis gets, and then Davos, same thing that happens with him on the show with Gendry. Davos finds out, hey, Melisandre's gonna burn this little kid. So then Davos steals Edric and sends him across the narrow sea to Essos to keep him safe. So Edric is potentially growing up over there, and he's a direct bastard of the former king, so he could potentially show up. The reason why no one really talks about him that much, or I personally don't talk about him that much, is because he's a child, and I think George makes it pretty well established that you cannot be a child and sit the Iron Throne. Like, we had that with Tommen now, and he's a good little kid, but his brother Joffrey wasn't. And Westeros has a long history of regencies that don't work out, whereas someone's parent rules for them, or a board of people rule for them, right? So that's never a good thing. That happened with the House of the Dragon. Let me give you some direct examples. Cregan Stark, he has a regency because when his father dies, he's only 8 years old, so his uncle Bernard takes over. And then he doesn't want to relinquish power. And then hollering back to the beginning of the stream, Rhaegar Baratheon, he's a regent, right, acting in power for Jaehaerys and Alysanne before Jaehaerys comes of age, and he tries to pull power, doesn't want to relinquish it, doesn't approve of the marriage between Jaehaerys and Alysanne, and wants to instead set up a marriage between Jaehaerys and one of his kindred, right? So this happens a lot when there's a regency that rules for someone who will rule when they come of age, right? So that doesn't work out. So I think George made a good point and set a story up well, where no kid in that aspect is going to be ruling by the end of the story, right? Sorry, my voice is getting really cracking. I'm going to drink some. So, Breanne Johnson just showed up. Hey, how you doing? Can I pin the comment up here? Well, let me do that. But everybody's comments up there, so that's cool. At least it's showing up on my end. Let me see what it looks like on YouTube. Also, shout out my boy Jay Fox. While I have everybody's attention here, please go follow my boy on Instagram. So, getting back on track. Edric Storm is sort of sent away, and we don't exactly know what is going to happen with this plotline. Kolninsky says Targaryens are kings. What Robert's bastard could desire? Well, we don't know, because he's little. Like, he seems like he's nice, because the conversations that he has with Davos makes it seem like he was raised well, right? And then also he interacts with his cousin, Shireen, and Shireen has gray face, or she does have gray face, but she has grayscale all over her face. It might be dormant, but there's reasons why people like Val, who is otherwise a good person, when they see Shireen, they're like, oh, get away. Like, get away, because she's got an active disease that's just dormant. And they know, or at least where she's from, they will leave babies abandoned out in the woods if they have that grayscale, because it's like the Great Plague. It's like, or the plague, the medieval plague, right? So, yeah. we don't know Kolnitsky. I don't know personally. Because he's a kid, and he seems like he's a good person. So he didn't really seem like he was aware that he should be king, or maybe kind of you get those vibes a little bit. Maybe if he marries Shireen, but like the realm would never accept Shireen as Shireen is technically Stannis' heir right now, and that's kind of one of the reasons why Cersei is able to convince some of the people in King's Landing to not support Stannis, because she mentions things like Stannis' daughter is messed up and he doesn't have any sons, and Stannis himself has the Red Woman, and they're doing wicked. They're charlatans, you know what I mean? Or whatever. So yeah, I don't know what Edric Storm's desires are. But finishing to answer up your question, where do you see House Baratheon by the end of the series? Edric seems like he could be one of their only hopes, just because he's tucked away. But George could easily go, that'd be too much of a plot line to try to wrap up in these last 2 books. He died off screen, and then he died off page, and then he'll mention Edric dying to someone like Davos in passing. Like maybe another character who knew the fate of Edric. But then the last part you said, Stannis is surely on his way out. I don't think so. I think Stannis may at least sit the throne, but not actually sit on the Iron Throne, at least for a time. So like I feel like the show didn't mess that up. The part of like Jon coming in and, having all of those armies and basically the events of the Battle of the Bastards being the same at the end. Like, Stannis is screwed right now, but like in the sense that there's a bunch of snow, and he's got some men, and they don't got much food, and they've been there for a while, and they're only like 3 leagues outside of Winterfell, and they could easily take it in a day's march, but all these people keep dying, and then there's cannibalism, and like all those things are terrible. But you gotta realize Stannis just secured a loan from the Iron Bank of Bravos, and Jon thinks to himself, oh well, Stannis may have just won the war, so that's a big deal. Cersei's an idiot for not paying the Iron Bank, and Roose is kind of got his own thing going on, but ultimately they are loyal to the crown, so they're tied into the Iron Bank. So what I'm saying is Jon was already planning to go and help Stannis, not even knowing what Stannis' full situation is. Jon just convinces a bunch of people to go join him to go take back Winterfell, and then he dies, right? He gets stabbed, and that's the last we hear of him. But then also, if Stannis secured a loan from the Iron Throne, I'm pretty sure they will bring up a Tycho Nostaris' armies. And those armies of Bravos are going to be there from sea. So Stannis not only has potentially Waymond Manderly's fleet, but he's also got the Braavosi war fleet that's going to spring into action and help him take Winterfell. And then Jon's going to show up with those wildland savages and the other Northmen, Night's Watchmen that sign up with him. And Jon was offered to be named a legitimate Stark something like 3 times by Stannis, and he turns him down both times. No, it wasn't 3 times, I think it was twice. 3rd time's a charm. Jon already kind of just agreed to take a Stark name, and when he riles everybody up at the Night's Watch in the Flag Hall or whatever, or the Shield Hall, and riles everybody up, and he's like, yo, let's go, we're gonna do this. I'm not gonna force you, but come and do this. Help me take Winterfell. This guy's down there, and he's got my sister as his bride. At least he thinks it's his sister, but it's not. It's Jane Poole, right? So, and then Jon gets stabbed, because right after the Shield Hall speech, it's really inspiring when you're reading it, when you're listening to it on audiobooks. It's amazing. Then he walks outside, and then bam, he's like, what is this? 1-1 has Patrick Flowers into a bloody pulp at this point, right? Because he was just smashing him up against the wall, because whatever happened between them, 1-1, who's a giant, 1 he's like 11 feet tall or some shit, he just smashed the dude, and then all of the people around him start freaking out, so they start grabbing swords. And then while this is happening, Jon turns around out of the corner of his eye, because he's like, oh, there's a sword right there, no, stop, and then he gets his throat slit, right? He thinks it's just a flesh wound, but after he holds it there for a while, then gets stabbed in the stomach and then in the back, he realizes, oh no, he's passing out from that initial. So Jon is, he's got multiple injuries at the same time, so he's dead, right? That's the last we hear of him. But also, like in the TV show, that's kind of the exact places where he gets stabbed at. I don't think they slit his throat, but that's the craziest one when Wick does that, because he go, it wasn't, right after he does it, he tries to go, I didn't mean, it wasn't me, John. And John's like, you idiot, what are you talking about? Like, John tries to grab Longclaw, but his fingers are slipping because they're numb. He's already starting to lose the ability to control his hand movements, which means he's losing a lot more blood a lot faster than he thinks, which means it's not just a flesh wound. So, but it's cool because Melisandre's literally right there. She can definitely bring somebody back to life because Thoros' punk ass can do it. And Melisandre literally says, I'm the best of my order. So she probably was at one point in her graduating class, which may have been 150, 200 years ago, but in her graduating class of Shadowbinders, she totally was a standout for sure because she's got the ability to be fair, Stannis is kind of an idiot, but she's got a hold over him to the point where he thinks that he can see things in the flames. Like, that's kind of all Stannis is doing these days, is just looking into the flames, trying to figure out what he sees. So she's got all of these people around her convinced of stuff, and obviously we know she can ingest poisons. She does this when Maester Crescent tries to poison her at the beginning of Clash of Kings, which actually, the more I read it, the more I'm... Because I've always kind of said after I first read the books, A Feast for Crows is my favorite, and I always stick to that. But I kind of feel like Clash is my favorite. And it's interesting because, not to say I'm different from everybody else, but I think a lot of people who read the books think Clash is one of the most boring ones. But I actually like it because of certain things that happen. Mostly with characters like Arya and stuff. And then obviously this is where Stannis and Melisandre are introduced. But Maester Crescent has the prologue in the Clash of Kings, so you get a Maester's POV, which is dope because that's where George hammers home a really cool, I guess it's a trope, I don't know, but like, wizards have pockets. I think the first, now that I've read Lord of the Rings, I know one of the first uses of like a wizard having a robe, or like a magical character, or like a character who possesses hidden knowledge having robes, wearing robes, but also having hidden pockets. It was probably popularized by some sort of medieval or some book that came out hundreds of years ago. But I know Tolkien put it in his books with Gandalf. And then George uses that with the Maesters. And then Patrick Rothfuss uses that with Covette. Covette has a million little tiny pockets that he puts all his things in. And he's a badass, yeah? With red hair, yeah? So yeah, that's really cool. It's dope as hell. Because like, there's a character that gets robbed. Not Covette, but the storyteller. I can't remember his name. He goes by like Penman or something. But anyway, he gets robbed, but he's got a few things hidden in all these hidden pockets. And that's just really cool. It's like you're prepared for a situation because you got these hidden pockets. It's cool. But anyway, Maester Crescent has a bunch of hidden pockets. And you would assume so do all the other Maesters. They have hidden pockets that they tuck things away in. So when he tries to poison Melisandre, she ingests this poison and is completely fine. So that proves that she's got some magical ability. Like, obviously, she could build up a tolerance to poison over time. But I feel like ultimately she says her powers are increased at the wall. I think the problem is, and she mentions this, is looking into the flames is hard as hell to do. Even though she's as accomplished as she is at doing it, she still gets stuff wrong. So you'll have posts on Twitter and posts on Reddit where they'll say Melisandre don't know nothing. She can't even get a simple vision right. But also she mentions that it's hard. And also when she mentions that, it's herself. So it's like her POV. So why would she be lying to herself about her abilities? She does remember, she thinks like, oh, I've been sold. I was a slave. I was sold to a temple of R'hllor. And then after that, I was in a shy. I learned how to do all of these different things like Shadowbind, which is something that she legitimately does. And also, when she's with when she's with Davos, in the TV show, Davos takes her to go have a shadow baby that goes to kill Renly. But they don't really explain why. It doesn't really make sense in the TV show. But in the books, Melisandre has Davos take her to Storm's Inn to kill this dude, Sir Courtney Penrose, with his shadow baby. And Davos has to sneak her in the same way that he snuck in Well, he's a smuggler, so he sneaks her into Storm's Inn. She has to be in the inner walls of Storm's Inn because Storm's Inn, this is dope, has magical wards that are built into the foundations. So Davos has to sneak her in past all these gates and stuff. And it's really cool because she has a shadow baby there. So Melisandre, if she can create life, she can stop bleeding and bring a dude who's close to death back. Especially when that dude is the son of Rhaella, son of Lyanna, a warg, which means his soul is right there. And we know seemingly unimportant characters like Beric Dondarrion have been brought back. I say that. Dondarrion, House Dondarrion. I'm not all that versed in the lore on House Dondarrion, but I do know that their sigil is a purple lightning on a black starry field, and they're from the southern marches of Dorne or whatever. So I don't think George has written all that much history for them. But anyway, if a dude like Beric, he's a lord, he's special, right? Because Thoros loves him. That's what makes him special, is he's Thoros' friend, who's a legitimate fire priest. Who really, all he did, instead of being trained for years and years like Melisandre, all he did was get drunk and fight in tourneys, lighting swords on fire, because Robert liked that, right? King Robert liked that. So he was allowed to sort of just hang around. But, I mean, you know, she can do it. She can bring him back. What do y'all think? Chat, let me know. Do you think Melisandre can bring back, can Melisandre bring back Jon Snow? I'm going to have to start doing my Patreon questions here in a second. All right, so all right, there was 6 that were submitted by random people on the section of the post that I was supposed to do for channel members. So I'm going to do those real quick, and then I'm going to do my patron questions to sort of close out the stream. So Ed Smith says, a sandstorm buried the other book. So I'm assuming this person means like, when's a winter? Where's when's a winter? That's funny. I don't think that's the case. I think George is going to be putting it out really soon. People have been saying that for 20 years. Not really, dude, because I mentioned before, there's a video link down below in the description, where I mentioned how we've never gotten this many updates before from George, this frequently. You can go back and verify that, which is one way I did it, which was go to Not a Blog, go to the search bar section, type in When's Winter, and then look at the sporadic. It'll be like 4 years without an update. And that's because he keeps making these promises like, I'll have it at Worldcon, or if I don't have it this day, lock me up on an island with a lake of fire, right? He kind of digs himself in the hole, but also he doesn't give a shit. Like, he's like, oh, well, it's just not done. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's funny. And then Ian Spence says, your House of the Dragon videos are good. Can't wait to see Jon Snow again. Hell yeah, I agree. Thank you for that comment, Ian Spence. Once again, this is from the community section on my YouTube page. I have channel members there that get to watch my videos ad-free. And I made a post that I thought was set for channel members only to submit questions, but I made it public. So I just let, I'm just reading all those comments of people that left comments there. So thank you all for watching. Paul Beck says, you smoking that good old Hightower green. Get some. Keep making videos, man. You're how I get my GOT news as much as possible. Can't wait for season 2. Me neither. I can't wait for season 2 of House of the Dragon. I can't wait for pictures of cast members that show up at sets that are being built. And I also can't wait for... Also, I would say, like, we could tell by the sets what's going to happen. But that was just from old habits. From with Game of Thrones, it was really exciting because I'd never read the books. When I would see the sets being built, so like in between season 6 and 7, and I'm seeing things being built, I'm like, oh, that's exciting. That's going to be the this or the that. And that would be the only way I could have an insight into what was going to happen in the show. But now that I've read Fire and Blood, I think 2 or 3 times, and gone back and listened to the Dance of Dragons section, which is like, after Sons of the Dragon, it really starts with Jaehaerys' reign. Yeah, I always start at the beginning or halfway through Jaehaerys' reign, right? And re-listen to that a few times. it's really exciting to get confirmation of stuff, right? I know it kind of sounds snooty, but just because I know it's going to happen so well, it's exciting to be like, okay, this is going to be, for instance, Rook's Rest. There's a person who sends me some stuff on the DMs. They used to have another account, but they stopped using it. They used to send me pictures on Twitter of stuff that a lot of the times it would be stuff that was already on Reddit. Like they would just screen cap stuff on Reddit, and that's why I never really interacted that much, because I'm like, oh, well, you're just reposting this. This is kind of like what someone else already did. Like a lot of the times it would be posts that people have verified Reddit accounts, and they're like, yo, I'm a photographer in the area. I took these pictures when I was out on a jog. And that's that, you want to give those types of people credit. But if it's someone who's just reposting other information, well, I'm not going to. Why would you try to find the original person who actually did the thing or whatever, right? But anyway, they mentioned that they were going to send me some pictures of stuff, and they did, but it was like the same. At least it looks like the same pictures that were on Reddit, where someone had posted on, I think it was the House of the Dragon subreddit, where they posted pictures of a set that was being built. That I'm like, oh yeah, this is Rook's Rest, right? Because you think, it's going to be one of the ones that are bigger, so they have to start working on it first. But also, it's kind of cool. I don't know if I can say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. They might be watching right now. Twins, Elliot and Luke, they follow me on Instagram. You know what I'm saying? The two kings god from the show, they got a big moment that happens in Dance of the Dragons coming up from Fire and Blood. But they were saying they're excited as hell to start filming. Like, everybody knows they're going to start filming soon because Matt Smith was, like, at this convention in Abu Dhabi. And he's like, yeah, we all start April 12th, right? Is it April 12th or April 15th, something like that. But that's really exciting, It's cool to hear stuff like that from people who were in the show, directly working on the show. And obviously, like, Claire Kilner is the director of the first, from the first season, directed several episodes, my favorite ones, right? Greg Yantis, he's interacted with me. I'm trying to get interview with both of those people, all of these people. But yeah, that's really cool to have that, like, they created what we're seeing. And, like, for instance, with the twins, they start on screen, like, I swear towards the queen. Like, yeah, I talked to that dude. And often on Instagram. That's cool. That's got like insight. And I'm sure whenever they can share stuff, they'll let me know stuff, maybe, right? But anyway, Sir Hunts, does your streams on the same day? Yeah, usually on Tuesdays, Kulnitsky. Tuesdays, they've been at 7. Sometimes I do them in the morning, but mostly on Tuesdays. Like if I take a couple weeks break and I come back, still on Tuesdays, but obviously when the show's on Sunday night at 10, right after I watch the episode. But thank you for watching. You've been here this whole stream. Appreciate it, my dude. Cam's Crash Courses says, George is saying I'm rich and old. I'll do whatever I want. I write, and when it's done, I'll publish it. Kind of, but he hasn't always been rich, right? The desire to want to make money and be successful in his career means that he was poor first, and then he was like, writing, was like his way out. That's his art. He's like, yo, I can get rich doing this shit. But now that he's made it, like, why not? But also, to be fair, as a fan, it's been a long time since we got the like, I'm not mistaken, Tolkien has officially wrote more books than him because he wrote enough stuff where his shit is still being published. Tolkien is like Tupac because he still has works that are being published today. Children of Huron or whatever was just published last year. So that's kind of cool. So, George has shit like that, I'm sure, that hasn't just been officially published. But he this has been said a million times. He's old. He can do whatever he wants in the sense that he may not have all that much time. So he can sort of like turn into Hugh Hefner in the 70s every day if he wanted to. Why not? His wife should let him do that. Paris, let our boy George do these things. To be fair, I've seen... No, I'm not going to say that because I know those people. I'm not going to say that, but George looks like he keeps some very attractive assistants around sometimes. I've seen some of George's assistants. They're pretty attractive. So Kikili is beautiful. She's hangs out with George before. She's been invited to Thanksgiving. This is public stuff. The public knows this. But yeah, that's cool. George probably... Well, he writes the way he does. you know. But yeah, Brian says, I think actually reading the books gives me a better picture than listening to an audiobook. Right, but I've done both. And to be fair, science says that it lights up, in simple terms, the same part of your brain as reading does. I've gone both ways. So I read all of the King Killer series on my phone through basically like a Kindle tablet, but an app, right? And then when I bought the books, I finished the story that way, and then went back after The Wise Man's Fear and read The Slow Regard of Silent Things in book format. I couldn't stand the audio narrator the first time I was going through it, the dude Nick Padell who does the King Killer Chronicles. So I read all of those. So I was like, when I was doing that, I'm like, this is so much better than listening to someone read to me. But then I don't have time to do that again. I got 2 children, so I fucking only listen to when I'm doing King Killer stuff, because I read those 3 times before I actually read the A Song of Ice and Fire series for the first time. What I would do back in the day was just read sample chapters, or not sample chapters, just random POVs and be like, okay, I'm ready to make a video. Let's do this. And that's why all those videos from back then sucked. But it was crazy because it got a ton of views. But anyway, nowadays, flash forward to like only having to be forced in some moments to experience stuff that way. It's more challenging to listen to an audiobook. So people that say, I prefer this over that, it's actually because it's harder. You have to like the narrator, and you have to be listening enough and engaged enough with the audiobook to like it, to want to continue to do it. Whereas when you're reading a good book, it's really easy. You read at your own pace. Like, people read fast as shit. But I've, like, from doing both, I actually get more from an audiobook, because now the only time I listen to it is when I'm 100% engaged with the audiobook. So whatever activity I'm doing is mindless. That's when I'm listening to it, and it's actually it's a way to consume media. For me, I've always liked movies, right? So I like watching stuff. And when someone would go, yeah, but did you read the book? When I was growing up, I'd be like, fuck, why the fuck would I want to read the book? Because I watched the movie. The movie's badass. Specifically, the Lord of the Rings movies. I grew up watching those hundreds of times. So when I would tell people that, and they'd be like, yeah, but have you read the books? Like, especially in high school, I'd be like, no, you fucking nerd. Get away. I read manga. Like, to me, that was as far as I'd take it, as I read Shonen Jump, right? It was a monthly subscription that came to my mailbox. I've told that story before, and I would just continue the free trial by just changing my name and getting it sent to a different, address or whatever. It's like the AOL thing. You could just keep getting a CD and signing up for the 30-day trial. That you used to be able to do stuff like that all the time. But anyway, when people will say stuff like, did you read the book though? I'd be like, no, you nerd. But anyway, what I've noticed with reading is I've noticed the more I do it, the faster I get at it. But the faster I get, the less I'm picking up. So, like with Dune, recently, flash forward 2 years later after I've been reading the A Song of Ice and Fire book so much, Dune, I've gone back to the audiobooks after completing them as the only way. I've never read any of the Dune books the first time I was listening to it. So I did them all on the audiobook, and that actually, they change a lot. So the first Dune audiobook has like music and stuff to it, and like different people doing different voices. So it's kind of really easy to either you hate it or you like it. And to me, I liked it because I was like, this is different than The Song of Ice and Fire. It's sci-fi. I love the movie. The movie from the 80s that I had randomly came across. It was a video of Sting on Instagram. I'm like, what the fuck is Sting doing? He had like orange hair. He's about to like duel somebody with a knife. So I was like, what is this? and I obviously found out, hey, this is Dune. A new one's coming out. And the information, that people that are in it, it looks amazing, right? So that's when I was like, let me read these after reading A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, I think I had read them like probably 3 or 4 times at that. So this was in like sometime in 2021. And then when I did start the Dune books last year, I ate them up in like probably 6 weeks. I did the whole audiobook, right? Or the whole audiobook one. Most of them. But anyway, now I've gone back and I'm like, oh, I want to do it again. So I started reading the Dune book, and I finished it in probably like a day and a half. And I'm trying to think back on like the most exciting moments of it, because everybody that's read Dune, I think most people agree that the first book is one of the best ones. I enjoyed Children of Dune and Chapter House Dune and Heretics of Dune the most. I kind of didn't like God Emperor of Dune because it's too too like it's too heady, and like the character himself, Leto too, is just the lore the stuff that he can do is cool, but all of the people that were in that are just, most of the characters were boring as hell. Like when you get to the time period after him, so that's in Chapter House and Heretics, it's way more interesting. The characters are a lot more engaging. I think, you had Dune Messiah. That's really one story. That should have been one book. That wraps up Paul's arc. And then you have Children of Dune, which is like the continuation of Paul's arc, but also he's still alive as the preacher. It's like, what? And then God Emperor of Dune is like, oh, this is Leto II, Paul's son, who's been alive for now 3,400 years, and everybody else is dead, all the people that you liked, except for Duncan Idaho. He's been brought back countless times as a Gola, which happened once already in Dune Messiah. So, I don't know. I can't really remember my point there. But anyway, when I was trying to think back on specific moments after reading Dune in a day and a half, I was like, I honestly can't remember anything. I don't know why that is. And I figured out afterwards, because I've started listening to the audiobook again now, it's because the audiobook with the actors in it, the voice actors, so much more engaging to me because I grew up watching movies. So I feel like I'm listening to a movie, but it's the book, so it's way better than the movie. So that's why I've always made a big point to say, like, yeah, if you say that, you could easily, like, if you blankly say, oh, I don't get enough information when I'm listening to the audiobook, or it's because it's boring, or the person who's doing its voice is weird, or whatever, it's harder to consume the media that way, and then have it stick to you, where you can do 2.5, 4-hour live streams, or like 4 hours of content a week just going off of memory from listening to mostly the audiobooks. So I feel like that isn't true when people say that, for me, right? Because I've just explained how. And then also, it's harder. So since it's harder, you're like having someone read to you or whatever. If you want to think of it that way, then yeah. I know I sound salty because that was the dude that said I don't like audiobooks. Sir Hunt's Dune is only comparable with A Song of Ice and Fire. I guess. I think Dune is its own thing. The first Dune book, clearly, Frank was in his own world, right? You can't even compare it with Lord of the Rings because it's nothing like it. And Lord of the Rings came out like 10 years before. Lord of the Rings came out in like 50s, 52 or something. Dune came out in 65. So, it wasn't being compared to that. It was just like, everybody's like, this is the greatest science fiction book of all time. And I think there was TV and movies and stuff, but it was nowhere near as big as it is nowadays. So most people did read a lot or listen to the radio because they didn't have a TV or a color TV or anything like that in their house. It wasn't common yet. So like writing books was held in a lot more high regard than it is nowadays. And also, to be fair, there's way more authors nowadays than there's ever been, I think, in all of history, because everybody is writing books. I wish I could write a book. I don't have enough discipline to sit down and do that. I have a million ideas, right? But I don't have enough discipline to do that. I could 100% write like a 15-page kids book, a short story or something, for sure. But I don't have enough discipline to write a full-out 1,000-page novel. That's why I have a lot of admiration for people like George, who could not just write a novel, but write ones that are so the way they are, that are, they're like as in depth. I'm not trying to lick George R. Martin's balls for 5 hours. I do that by making content on his videos. But yeah, everybody knows how good these books are. They're amazing. Copper Broom says, I love audiobooks. One of life's great perks. Yes, it's not I don't know. There's always people that look at certain things that like are gatekept in anything, whether it's reading or making YouTube videos, being a YouTuber. There's all kinds of gatekeeping. Like, I remember there's this one YouTuber who, personally, I would definitely collab with him now and fuck with him now. But I remember for years, the reason why I didn't was because I saw them. They did a live stream one time, and they were like, "It's funny now how people who make videos on the show aren't really getting that many views, but people who read the books are." And I remember thinking, like, what? We make the same shit. We do the same shit, and you think like basically you're better than somebody because you read the books, and like that ultimately made me want to be like, okay, well, yeah, now I read the books and watch the show and what, you know what I mean? But like I said, that was years ago, probably like 3 years ago now. Yeah, it was before my son was born, so this was 2019. So yeah, but yeah, anyway, yeah, we'll definitely do a collab with that person out. But I remember back then thinking like, oh, I'm never gonna do a collab with this person because of that. Stupid. Missy W said, with my ADD, it was hard for me to keep up with all the characters until I watched the series and I could put faces to some of the names. Yeah, definitely. The show has helped solidify mad things from reading the books. Like when I can't quite picture something, like something we haven't really visited yet, which was Casterly Rock. It's kind of easy to picture it now because we've seen it, even though it was a horrible depiction on the show, at least from George thinks. On, I think it was season 8, or no, season 7 when they, what season is it when they go there and capture it? Is it season? Might be season 8. I'm not sure. It's where Tyrion makes that plan to sneak the Grey Worm and all those people in through the canal that's supposed to be big enough for a ship to pass through. Anyway, it's easy to picture stuff now. Not Casterly Rock was a bad example, but especially with certain characters, like you said, for sure. Every time I'm reading POVs, like Breanne, I think of Gwendolyn Christie. I'm like, oh yeah, Gwendolyn Christie, watch out for Pig. He's gonna try to, hit you with the sword. Watch out for Biter, because he's gonna eat your face off, Gwendolyn Christie. That would have been insane if they did do that for the TV show. That would have been nuts. I wonder why they didn't. That's such an easy thing to include in her storyline. She would have looked so much more badass than beating up Sandor. That didn't happen. She doesn't even realize. She kind of realizes she met him, but they sort of just walked past each other. He's at the Quiet Isle as the gravedigger, and he's like digging graves and like limping, and his persona as the Hound is dead. Right, like he's playing with a dog. He's like, his horse is there, but like that's like Sandor. It just kind of walks past Breanne. She kind of gets an idea, but like it's meant for the reader. As the reader, we pick it up as like, oh yeah, well that's the Hound potentially. That's why the show did what they did with the Gravedigger. But I don't know why they didn't include that. That would have been really easy. She would have looked so much more badass beating up this dude that was eating off of her. I guess because they would have had to do Lady Stoneheart, and they decided that she was cut from the show. I remember Lady Stoneheart was one of the reasons why I started watching the show in the first place. This was 2012. I'm a hardcore Walking Dead fan. Walking Dead came out in 2009 or 2010 or whatever, so it's in its 3rd or 4th season. So I'm like, Walking Dead or die. Like, that was the only show that I was hardcore about. Then my friend kept telling me, no, you gotta watch Game of Thrones. You gotta watch it. So I watched an episode, and I was like, this is boring. It's too much talking. This is stupid. But eventually, they have a couple seasons. So I started watching Game of Thrones, like, as it was coming out, I think, in between the 4th to 5th season or something like that. But my friend kept telling me, no, you don't understand. I don't think he had read the books, but he heard that the character that died at the Red Wedding, Lady Catelyn, is going to come back as this character, Lady Stoneheart, and she's a zombie. And when he kept telling me that, I'm like, dude, that might be cool, but how long does it take for that to happen in the story? Because my whole thing was, as I say, it's boring, but what I really mean is, like, I would watch it, see some titties, jack off, and then lose interest. Dead serious. I would lose interest, because obviously when I'm watching porn and I do that, I'm not going to watch porn anymore. What's the point? I've already done it, right? So that's what I would do with Game of Thrones. It was like, this is not interesting at all. It's so boring. There's so much talking, except for when I see Emilia Clarke's titties. There's so much talking, right? Dead serious. So I never watched it. But then when they told me that, I was like, my friend Ryan, I was like, all right, well, yeah, shit, I'll watch, dude. There's going to be a zombie show up eventually. So then I watched the first season. Then I was like, well, I got to watch the second season. I got to watch the 3rd season. And then I started watching it live. Then I actually have screenshots of when Jon Snow died, right before, like a year and a half or something, before I started making Game of Thrones videos, where I was mad at Dan and Dave for killing Jon Snow because I didn't understand there were books. Like I knew there were books, but I didn't realize the author is the one who wrote that. Like it wasn't Dan and Dave then. But the status is from 2013, and it says me, or maybe 2014, and it says it's like me saying, "Fuck you, Dan and Dave, you idiots! Why you kill my boy Jon Snow, my boy?" No one liked it. I had like 100 friends on Facebook. No one liked it because I guess they're like, "What is he talking about?" But I looked up, I guess, the creators of the show, and that's why I said that. I was Googling shit back then. Everybody was Googling shit back then, but remember, yeah. I didn't even honestly know that people had made YouTube videos. Like, the only time I'd go to YouTube is to look up, like, videos that I would see on shows like Tosh.0 or something to try to, like, I would go to YouTube and I would literally type in funny pranks or some shit, and it would always be like, you know, some kind of video that'd be like, "This is hilarious," or viral videos or whatever. I didn't realize people made reviews of TV shows. I didn't understand that as a concept. They're like, "Wait, what?" And then I saw a video from this dude, Emergency Awesome, and I was like, all right, well, this is a thing. And my girlfriend had made YouTube videos before, but I didn't understand why she was doing makeup stuff. I was like, okay, I'd never even really paid that much attention to it because she kind of just did it randomly. But then when I started, I was like, holy shit, this is a thing. People will sit here and watch me talk about it. I don't know how many people are watching right now. Let me see. Since I just said that, let me see. Oh, nice. We got 26 people watching. Dope. Please slap a like on this. Oh, well, there's 39 likes. So then everybody that's watching has probably already liked it. Well, thank you for doing that. I'm just seeing if I miss any questions. No, I haven't. All right. So let me do my... Did I finish the community section ones? I think I did. I'm going to go to my Patreon questions. Jonathan GXX says, my man chiefing on the essence of the nightshade. Thank you for watching, Jonathan GXX. And then I got two from Divine Sharika. He does art on Instagram. He's done some Lord of the Rings pieces and some House of the Dragon pieces. And I think the username is the same as Divine Sharika, CHAREKA. They said, who do you think was the Knight of the Laughing Tree? I've heard and read so many different theories as to who he was exactly, but I'd also want to know your opinion on that, sir. See y'all in the live stream. Knight of the Laughing Tree is Lyanna Mormont, for sure. It's the only one that makes sense. If Howland Reed could do the things that Lyanna did by knocking people that were bigger than her off their horses, then he would have done it. He wouldn't have had to hide his identity. He did that because he was a girl, and like that would have considered shame. That would have brought shame to House Stark. You got to realize, if it was a normal Targaryen on the Iron Throne, maybe like if Mad King had died and Rhaegar was already sitting in the Iron Throne, Rhaegar would have thought it was funny. So Lyanna wouldn't have had to hide her identity after she beat these dudes. She would have showed, oh, like, hey, look, it's me, Lyanna Mormont, right? But she had to hide her identity because the Mad King would have destroyed. He's crazy. He would have killed her for doing something like that. He'd be like, why is House Stark sending their daughter to do this tourney? You know, like the Mad King was already suspicious that his son was trying to usurp his throne. So if he saw a girl trying to participate in the thing, his face would have blown off. He would have been like, you know, the dude whose head explodes when he sees the true face of Clayton Bigsby. When they're like, oh my God, he's black? Yeah, so that was what would have happened, because he would have been like, you did this to distract me, and the Starks are trying to take power, or something like that. And then guess what? His son runs away with a Stark girl, so of course. Yeah, I think that's the only reason why it's a mystery, is because it's not really a mystery. It's George tells us, yo, this is Lyanna. She's sticking up for her friend Howland Reed because Howland's being bullied by these dudes. And she had to hide her identity because, in other contexts, this guy's crazy. And George, that's my dog. He's dreaming. Diesel. Diesel. Wake up, dude. He thought he was running in a field of flowers. Nah, nigga, you sleeping right there. Wake up, please. He's like, what? But yeah, anyway. So yeah, Lyanna. I think the only reason why her identity, the Night of the Laughing Tree, has to be left a mystery is because of the context that the Mad King is crazy. And if he found out that a girl was doing his turn, he would have been like, Rhaegar, why, he would have just been, he would have been the Mad King. Next question is from Divine Shrika. Says, Aerys II Targaryen was a very good young man during his youth, and many were certain that he would become a wonderful king. I've always thought that there was more to his madness than just him being insecure and his fear of betrayal. I would love to hear your take on why he ended up being the Mad King. He just has a mental illness that progressed over time, and he potentially was poisoned by Pycelle. The main reason being is, why I say that personally is because Pycelle's loyalties are so heavily Lannister. Like, he's Lannister till he dies. He's House Lannister even after Tywin dies, right? Which is kind of weird. He ends up dying with Kevin. Like, he dies shortly before Kevin shows up in the Dance of Dragons epilogue, right? It's just weird that Pycelle has such heavily loyalties to the dude that's in direct opposition to the Mad King. Like, the Mad King grew up with Tywin. They're best friends, right? And then ultimately Tywin does nothing, absolutely nothing. And the Mad King feels like he's slighted, right? In Tywin, if he didn't grow up the circumstances where, like, everybody laughed at his dad, and he grew to hate laughter because he knew that laughter meant that people were directly deceiving him and his house. So he grew to hate that. And also, they grow up in a feudal society, so everybody's dying left and right. You kind of have your priorities way shifted. He's probably already killed a few people, So it doesn't affect him to do certain things that what we would consider amoral. Hey, this guy's evil as hell, right? We don't consider it that, or they didn't consider it that in that made-up fantasy world. That's why the Game of Thrones books are so good, is they include so much realistic stuff like that. But then also you got magic. And all these characters are walking around with their titties out, right? Like, that's awesome, right? We all liked dragons and titties, right? That's the best. George's like, I do as well, but listen, here's some history, because I'm a bit of a history buff. Like, that's George's take on, Song of Ice and Fire. And I'm a bit of a history buff myself, in that I've listened to 3 different audiobooks on history. So, actually, I haven't finished any of them, because I keep going back to my fantasy stuff, because I'm like, well, this is fake and this is better. Real history is good. You got to find the right time period that interests you. Like, I've pretty much learned everything I feel like I can learn about Egypt. And if you ask me to recall certain specific cool facts about Egypt right now, I probably wouldn't remember nothing, because I'm in a Song of Ice and Fire mode. But if I re-listened to one of those audiobooks, or maybe bought some, that's actually one thing that I need to do, is because I've listened to a few different history books. I need to buy those, because I have all physical copies of all the books, aside from the Silmarillion, which I just finished yesterday, maybe. I need to buy that. But all of those behind me, I've all read them, so I want to get the history books that I read too. But anyway, history can, I'll do a couple of days of that, but I'm like, this is boring. I want to go back to wizards. So, Song of Ice and Fire, but with a realistic take to it. Wizards that learned at a wizard school, but at this wizard school, forbidden knowledge is shunned. So individuals like Marwyn are kind of like an outcast, and then also you got fucking did I really forget his name? Qyburn, or as I call him, Wyburn, who does so much of a shunning thing that he gets expelled from the Citadel entirely, and his chain gets removed. But he still knows enough stuff to make his way around Westeros, and he potentially saved Jaime's life, because Jaime, the savages that cut off Jaime's hand, and I call them savages like in a like a sort of like I praise them way, because they're so cold. You're like, oh man, this character is so cold. How could you not respect how cold they are? And when I say cold, I mean like, damn, you're cold hearted, you cold blooded, right? But also like, not cool, kind of. So yeah, you respect them in that sense, because it's actually a, get this, Dothraki dude, right? That does it. If I'm not mistaken, the TV show has, what did they call him on the TV show? What did they call it? I don't even know what the hell his name was. But in the books, it's this dude named Vargo Hoat, the goat, because he's got this long goat beard. He commands Jaime's hand to be cut off. And this dude he's a Dothraki. He's like a Dothraki, but he's sort of like working with these brave companion fellows. And he just sort of flashes. I might be getting that confused. Yeah, because these dudes are hired by Tywin. Tywin hires these dudes, and they cut Jaime's hand off. But after they cut his hand off, they hang it around his neck. And like in the TV show, he's really sick and ill. And Qyburn saves his life. So, yeah, I don't know. Sir Hunt says merch. I do. Actually, it's all on Teespring right now, but I don't know if I have it linked down below in the description. But if you go to my on your phone, if you go to the store part, you can see some of the t-shirts that I've designed. Actually, one of them, I don't know if you know this user, Reflective Rambling. She goes by Cass Nailana. She designed my icon down there in the corner. You see it with me holding my shield up, badass. I've posted it on my social media and stuff. She designed a t-shirt. I've sold one of them right now, but she wants to give, if you want to pick one, pick that one, because she's cool, and she designed that like she drew it. All the other designs I did myself on this app that kind of just has everything available for you. You just gotta place it. So like all the dragon stuff that I designed from a patron, that's like a shape that you can just sort of drag and pull into an image. You make it from scratch, but it's a lot less personal than what Cassie did, which was draw, by hand, that designed for it. So if you want to pick, I would recommend that. Also, she said for her reimbursement thing, she wants to give, forget the amount, but like 50 cents to $1 or something towards charity for every one of them that's sold. So one of them has sold right now. My boy Dennis Sorensen picked one up. So I haven't really talked with Cass in months about that, because I don't sell a lot of t-shirts and stuff. Not the biggest YouTuber. When I should have probably sold t-shirts, but I remember thinking at the time when I was huge, I was like, man, I can't sell t-shirts. I'm not big enough. But now I've sold like eight or 10 t-shirts total after, since House of the Dragons come out. So that's been dope. But yeah, I do have merch. If you wanted a recommendation, I'd recommend that one. Crystal Mixon said, if not, I'd buy. I'd like to watch Dragon and Titties. Right. New merch idea, Dragon and Titties. Oh, that's why you were saying, did I sell merch? That would be it. Maybe I'll do that. I'll try to do that. Try to remember that. I'll try to design something. I like dragons and titties. I was banned on one channel when called Danny Mad. Yeah, I actually didn't realize this, but I went through all the people that I had blocked on my channel tonight, and I unblocked everybody. There was somebody, there's probably like 10 usernames that I recognize that people they'll come and comment. They'll be like, clickbait. This is clickbait. And now my attitude towards is like, hey, thank you for doing that. Thank you for letting me know. I try to not do it as much as possible, but also I watch some people. For instance, my boy Scotty Kilmer, he makes car videos where he will literally... Scotty's the man, so you kind of don't get mad at his clickbait, but that's straight up clickbait, and he doesn't give a shit. I don't at least do that. But also, to be fair, he's got 5 million subscribers, so he can kind of do shit like that. He's been doing YouTube since it came out. But yeah, like he took a picture of someone hit his mailbox, and the thumbnail was, someone, my home was destroyed, and he's like laying in front of it's hilarious. He knows everything about cars. If you're into cars, you should watch that dude, which he's got 5 million subs, so you've probably seen his stuff here on YouTube. It's hilarious. He does like this, kind of like this, like used car salesman thing, but also knows cars because he's been working on them for 55 years. So that's dope. It's like George, right? If you were talking to George about A Song of Ice and Fire, how much he knows like fantasy books and movie and old shit like that in general. It's how much this Scotty Kilmer dude knows cars, and it's dope because he knows not just one type of car, but all types of cars. Like I've followed Chris Fix. Chris Fix will show you very thoroughly how to do something, which is why you not respect that. You got to subscribe to somebody like that. I also used to be subscribed to a couple of different car people, but they kind of make content that I noticed I would only watch it occasionally. But all the people that I subscribe to here on YouTube are people that I watch religiously. Like I watch their stuff when it comes out. You know what I mean? Like Daniel Green. I've watched his videos for a couple of years now. Actually, like when Wheel of Time was coming out, that was at the end of 2021. I remember I found his videos because I was making Wheel of Time videos, and I was like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Because he had like 500,000 views for like some like I don't even remember what the video was for, but I remember clicking on it and being like, "What the hell?" And then I started going back to watch his shit often for different stuff. And I remember like, hey, it'd be cool to see his stuff for when House of the Dragon comes out. But I don't know if he did episode reviews or whatever. But I recently subscribed to him because I'm like, I'm watching this dude's videos all the time. Why don't I just subscribe? So yeah. I just also realized that's actually kind of a good thing to do because then if you do subscribe to a channel, you know you're not going to unsubscribe quickly because you know you like that person. You know what I mean? Because you've been watching them for a while. Which is what I was trying to warn the person earlier who said they just found me. Make sure you stick around for a while because I probably said some shit that would make you not want to stick around. And I noticed that may be the problem because I'll have a certain type of bipolar personality in one video, right? I say that quickly because it's a self-diagnosis. You know, there's people that actually have that. They went to a doctor, right? You pay money to find out you have this thing, but I feel like I've diagnosed. But anyway, there'll be a mood where I rate that video and everybody, like somebody watching might be like, oh, this is an acceptable personality. I like this person. This is cool. And then another day, they'll watch a video of mine where like, you know, not necessarily feeling that great and my attitude is like different, right? But anyway, the Dothraki companion has a Valyrian steel Eric. I forget his name at the moment. Yeah, me too. But yeah, that's what's dope about Valyrian steel is that in the rest of the world, it's kind of more prevalent. Whereas in Westeros, there's a numbered 200 plus amount of Valyrian steel swords or something like that, that all these different houses have. And to be honest, I think I can't even tell you the amount of houses that are named in the A Song of Ice and Fire books. I know it's embarrassing because I'm on my 8th reread / re-listen, but there's hundreds, like probably 200 plus. So like a lot of houses, a lot of like major and minor houses have them, in different forms of them. Mostly swords, it would seem, but like in Essos, you get Valyrian steel Erics. Like there's this dude called Sandok the Shadow who has Valyrian steel Erics that are badass. Also, I think there's, you know, we have a Valyrian steel necklace that Daemon gives to, Rhaenyra on the TV show. Also, that happens in the books. Specifically, I think Daemon brings her a necklace from an Empress of Valyria or something like that. That may be what they did on the TV show. I don't know, but you assume that it's some rare, precious metal like Valyrian steel. Because Daemon would often be over in Essos, like on adventures, because his brother's the king. So Daemon kind of, in the TV show, we get to see his character from an early age, and then by the end, he's supposed to be close to his actual age, the actor's age, which I think he's like 40-something, early 40s. So in the books, Daemon is like 49, so he's not far off. The actor's not far off from his actual age now, but, because he's that, like, of a veteran character, when we're reading Fire and Blood, George has a way of writing where in such few words you get this image, this mental image of this dude. So I think of Daemon from the book specifically as this veteran character who, like, it's just mentioned briefly on some of the things that he did, whereas in the show, he's choking Rhaenyra. That didn't happen in the books. You just hear Daemon did wise things like, hey, the battle starts out, Daemon takes Harrenhal because he knows strategically that's in the heart of the Riverlands. It's the best defensive castle. He is a dragon. I'm going to show these people that I don't really want to kill them because he lands it on top of the the Kingspire Tower and then takes all of Harrenhal without spilling or killing anybody, without spilling any blood, right? So you respect Daemon and you think, oh, well, he's been through some stuff, obviously. He has battles in the Stepstones for years, and that was kind of hard to show on the TV show because they only have 10 episodes, right? But in the books, George says, oh, yeah, the Stepstones War happened for years, and it's such a raging war. Remember, George is good at writing things in such few words. He just briefly mentions that even after Daemon left, there was another King of the Stepstones after that, and it's always at war, right? Right now, the Velaryon Bastard dude is currently down there with the royal fleet, with all these ships that Cersei had built. Like, he's down there with ships with funny names such as Princess Marcella and Queen Cersei and Tywin Lannister. Like, this dude like swindled all these ships from Cersei, because as soon as Cersei got locked up, he was like, all right, well, it's time to go, boys. We're the king of the Stepstones. At least I think that's who that is. But he could potentially be dead, and it's actually Salladhor Saan, who's a much more experienced and wizened battle commander who kind of left Stannis' service after his last interaction with Davos. He's like, man, Stannis ain't paid me. He's not going. But now Stannis can pay him, because like I mentioned earlier, Stannis has the loan from the Iron Bank. Kolnitsky, are you sure? I thought that was part of the point. The Arak was Valyrian steel. Wait, what? Zolo, that's his name. That's the dude's name. His Arak's not Valyrian steel. Kago Corpse Killer. That's in Daenerys' storyline. There's a few different ones. Sanduk the Shadow has a Valyrian steel Arak. You see it in weapons and jewelry, but you don't see it in full suits of armor like Euron supposedly has. But here's the thing, you gotta realize, Aeron is on days of seeing no sunlight, right? That's the first thing. No food, no water, not proper amounts, probably just barely enough to be kept alive. He's standing in like water. He's in standing water, right? So much to the point where his feet are blistered. And this is all from the POV chapter called Forsaken that we get. I'm actually working my way through all the Winds of Winter POVs. I'm finally doing like actual videos, breaking them down, reading them live. And I haven't read them that many times, so it's kind of like a live reaction to them. Check that out. That's linked down below, please. But yeah, so he's in standing water. His feet are soggy. He hasn't eaten in days, right? You can go like, 3 weeks or something without eating, but he's, in terrible condition. And then he's also being force fed like, shade of the evening. So he's lost his mind entirely. And also Euron is abusing him. He ties him to the mast of his ship. So while all of this is happening to one person, he sees Euron in a suit of black Valyrian steel armor, which is kind of nonsense, because it's like, George says, yeah, Euron's been to Valyria, but also, like, yeah, in what condition? And when George said that, he might have had an entirely different version of the Winds of Winter that we are going to eventually get, because he's definitely had to rewrite. I think everybody agrees he's had to rewrite several parts. He's a perfectionist. We know that because of what he's put out so far. And then also, it's taken so fucking long. For sure, he's a perfectionist. He's rewriting shit. That's one of the only things. He's probably rewritten the book 3 times over since the show's ended. You know what I mean? Like, he's been prolific with the writing stuff. That's why he's confidently, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, that's why he's confidently doing interviews and showing his face, because he's like, yo, you fuckers will see. You'll see how badass this book is going to be when it comes out. It's going to break everything. What's funny to me is I actually did a video, I think it was just for my patron, patreon.com/reviews if you want to join. But thank you for watching here. If you're doing that, that's just as good. Thank you. Where I reacted to a review where somebody went ham, and the review ends with them saying George R. Martin is the reason why epic fantasy in large volume form isn't being accepted by publishers right now. I remember thinking to myself, like, what? How bitter is this person? Because the whole review, when I'm reading it, it was a twist. I remember thinking, like, this person's raising some valid points here. And then when I got to the end and it said that, and they literally, the person said, the username was like HJ Keeley. They have like 1,000 reviews on Goodreads, which is like this book review website. It's like one of the, if you type in any book and say, how is it? Goodreads, the website, usually is one of the first ones that'll pop up. It's a really popular reading website. And this user has a bunch of they're very respected on the website. So I remember thinking, like, that's something, because these are all book nerdy people. Like, you don't go to this website if you're just a casual, like, you just, you'll read a book whenever you want to, you know what I mean? Or, like, whatever, right? But it's a legit, like, reviewing thing. So the review was like twists and turns. It's telling me all these different things, and I'm like, oh, these are good points. But also, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff. You can kind of tell this person's trying to be funny, smarmy, right? And then you get to the end, and they say, well, I also personally, I have friends in the industry. I'm in the industry myself, and I know for a fact that publishers aren't accepting large form, multi-book, whatever the fuck deals right now with newer writers because of George's inability to deliver his books on time. And I remember thinking, like, that's wild. This is such a wild thing to fucking to end a pretty good written review, like a well thought out thing, right? I don't know. My videos probably make a lot of people that casually watch my shit think I'm an idiot, because I just a lot of time don't spend that much time making them, right? But what I'm saying has a lot of thought into it, but what you're seeing on screen isn't, because it's usually just me sitting right here, right, doing that. I don't necessarily have all the time to edit these videos. But anyway, people probably think I'm not that intelligent, but I like reading people that are intelligent and watching and listening to people that are, because I feel like I'm gaining something from those people, right? So I like reading those reviews because of that. I'm like, well, this is, I'll feel like I'll have a better perspective on how to read a book or how to enjoy certain types of book by reading from people who are well read, right? I haven't personally read that many books, so I know I haven't read that many at all. They all fit on that bookshelf right there. So that's my whole point. But yeah, people that have read thousands of books, somebody who reviews books on a website, and you could see that some of their most reviewed ones, like the Game of Thrones, they made some points, but also you could tell, because I know the book so well, they haven't read them that much, and it was kind of like they read one all the way. They read most of, probably, like, if I had to guess, they kept making references to Clash of Kings, but then also Storm of Swords. So it's like they kind of heard that Red Wedding was a big deal. So let me read the second and third book. They skipped the first book entirely because they couldn't. The person who was reviewing it couldn't make the connections. But I bet you, and I wonder if George has read things like that online one time, and he's like, these people think they've got me figured out. Let me break the world. And then he has that as in his head as like, oh, I got to do the best thing ever. But then, it's not out yet because he's such a perfectionist. That's what I mean when I think people agree to that. Kago Corpse Killer. Hail, sir, I will defer to you. Cheers and thank you. Valyrian, thank you, Cams. Valyrian steel costs a kingdom. It's come from the brave companions. Don't have such. I think. Are you sure it isn't Valyrian steel? I know some. There's definitely. Kago Corpse Killer is like just a fighter in the pits of Daznak, right? He's one of the people that petitions to have the pits of Marine. Let me check that out. Let me check. Kago Corpse Killer. I'm pretty sure he's one of the people that Daenerys, Daenerys has a few different people that come and see her when when Hizdar is trying to reopen the fighting pits. I think Kago is one of those dudes, and then he ends up, like, after Daenerys leaves on Drogon, Kago is one of the dudes that's just still around, but he's like a pit fighter. Barristan Selmy kills one of them. But anyway, he's not that special of a dude. He gets that because Daenerys gifts him to him. But it's my point is, like, in the books that have come out since the main series, so Fire and Blood and the World of Ice and Fire, George mentions, I think, a few different random lower-ish people that will have oh wait, he's a sellsword? Let me see here. Oh, he's a captain of the Windblown. Well, actually, he is kind of high up, so he isn't just nobody. So I see your point there. Yeah, not nobodies have that. All right. Kago Corpse Killer. That's such a badass name. What's your name? Kago Corpse Killer. That actually sounds like a rap name. MC Corpse Killer. I'm killing things that are already dead. My name is an algorithm. It messes with your head. I would sell it if I were him and retire. All right, so yeah, let me do my Patreon questions. And we're over 2 hours. I haven't done a stream over 2 hours in I think a few streams. So I'm going to wrap it up after this. All right, questions from my Patreons. This is always my favorite part. And you may go, why is it your favorite part? Well, these people pay me money every month. For real. Also, usually I just skim over the questions, so I'm kind of reacting and answering live. And I feel like that's fun. All right, so the first question is from my patron AnaaaRodarte. What's up, Anastasia? She said, when do you stop comparing books to show? And do you think anything from season 8's ending, will any of it end up in wins, or will it be completely different? Or in a dream? I don't know. I mean, I think George legally or contractually is obligated to say, yeah, it'll have similar notes and it'll be somewhat, Breanne will be the king. But he also says that knowing that most of the executives or whoever the people were at HBO that were making deals with him for Game of Thrones, not the people with House of the Dragon, it's probably different people. HBO's like cleared house since then, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know how that stuff works, but he knows they're not going to read his entire book. He could easily double the meaning of something. And when you know the books as well as people watching this, and as I do personally, you could easily make points to say, no, the books are totally different and nothing will be the same in the show, right? So I don't know. It's hard to answer until we get Wins. Once Wins comes out, I can fully answer that question. But your first question, Anna, was when do you stop comparing books to show? Well, now never, because now I've read the books. And I think you're reading the books too now. I don't know if you've read them before, but you'll know when you go back and watch the show. You can't ever do that. You can't separate the two. I actually have conflicted memories of what happens in the books and the show. It's hard for me because I haven't watched the show in a year, but I watched it 7 times. I've watched the show a bunch of fucking times all the way through too. Like before I read the books, the show was all I had, so I just kept restarting it season after season. And we're waiting for it to come out, even before I made videos on YouTube. Because that's all. Once you watch Game of Thrones and like it, you're like, man, all other shows suck. But yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Anna. The next one's from North Must Remember. He's been here, I think, for a good portion of the stream, perhaps. I'll quickly try to see if I see him in the chat. Either way, go subscribe to his channel, please. Thank you for your support, man. He says, in your opinion, and based on evidence in the books, who is more likely to be fathered by the Mad King, Tyrion or Cersei or Jaime? All right. Now this, I've gotten this question before. I think everybody who's, into the series and you find out about it, even if you haven't read the books, but you find out potentially this dude, Mad King, potentially invoked his right on Tywin. That would also make sense of why him and Tywin suddenly started not messing with each other. And then you realize that Jaime sees Cersei looking like the Mad King. And then you hear things that, like, from Barristan. Barristan tells Daenerys, I think, is how we find out, Tywin in the Mad King liked Tywin's wife, who was also his cousin, right? Before they got married, right? I think it's, I don't know. Barristan delivers a lot of information to Daenerys, a lot of history. So I can't remember. I think it's maybe he thinks back. Someone thinks back, but it's confirmed that like there was a tryst there that happened. Unfortunately, we never got a Tywin POV, so we don't know what happened. So it would have been dope. I think that was too tough of a chapter. Potentially, maybe George has written a Tywin POV before he died in the earlier books and was like, this is giving away too much of the story or something. Because Tywin's gonna always be thinking of certain things. Probably why he hasn't written Roose Bolton POV or Ramsay, because they're villains and like it makes it more interesting to not know what they're thinking. Kind of like with Tywin. Tywin's definitely meant to be like a villain. I say villain, but maybe I could say Machiavellian, but a lot of people say that, and I don't really know what that means. I know Tupac had an album named Machiavelli, but I don't know this dude who was around in maybe the Italian he was Italian or something, and he's from like the 1200s. I don't know. He did something where he faked his death, right? Isn't that what he did? Because that's what Tupac said he was going to do, because Tupac was shot a bunch of times, and he probably felt like he could survive. If it happened again, he would survive it. But guess what? He didn't. You didn't survive that last time, Tupac. Probably should have sat your ass down in your mansion with your millions of dollars. You didn't need to go beat that man up. Why did you beat that man up? There's no mystery. He's the one who shot you. It's because you beat his ass up in the casino. It's not a mystery. But seriously, I don't know what Machiavelli. I don't know who the fuck Machiavelli. So I'm not gonna say Tywin is a Machiavellian person. That's all I see get repeated in a comment about Tywin. People will be like, he's Machiavelli. He's this Machiavellian figure. Who is He faked his death? Is he a mastermind? Is that what he is? I don't know. In my history travels, I haven't been interested enough in or heard about him to be like, who is this guy, Machiavelli? Probably because even before Game of Thrones, people would say, yeah, Tupac Machiavelli, that's the best album or something. I don't know, whatever. Or hey, Tupac Machiavelli, he's going to come back. Yeah, that's what it was. My sister was like, he's going to come back in September. And this was in like 2001. My sister was like, he's going to come back. Tupac is going to show everybody that he's just been hiding. And he's going to come back in 2001 or something in September on the 17th. Because like his album, when you reverse the dates, was the date that he was going to come. I don't fucking know. But I remember being like, that's not going to happen, Shanae. And she was 3 years older than me. And this was like, 2001 or something. So, or maybe 2000. And, her being older than me and not knowing that, I remember thinking like, you're dumb. Like, I don't know. It was funny. Still a Tupac fan though. He just shouldn't have did that. You shouldn't. He has enough money to have security, but he's got this idiot Suge Knight, right? And like that night, Suge Knight's like, nobody can carry guns. He tells that to the security team. And I don't know if Tupac knew about that, but obviously the dude that was in the car with Tupac when it happened was his security guard who didn't have a gun. He was like, all right, well, I guess I shouldn't have a gun. Like, what the fuck? Come on, man. That shouldn't have happened. Kolnitsky said, I read Machiavelli Prince. What is that? Is that a book? Is that like a book that's like a biography about Machiavelli? Cams, crash courses, bring up your friends, we need more people. He was saying he's leaving. Good evening, everyone. Sir Hans Kolnitsky, thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your you're leaving. Yeah. Well, thank you for watching. This thing on the StreamYard has been stuck at like it says 35 viewers, but I know that's not how many people are watching. So however many people are watching, thank you. Got a couple more questions from my patrons, and then I'm gonna get the hell out of here. I don't know if I'm taking up anybody's time. But if I had to pick Tyrion, Cersei, or Jaime, probably Cersei and Jaime, for the simple fact that they were born first. So if it happened like once, it will probably be the first time closer to when they first got married. For the simple time, Cersei and Jaime were conceived before Tyrion, and it would probably happen legally. The king could definitely take his right if they were married in King's Landing, or if the king came to visit when they got married. The events that happen around then aren't solidified. There could have been a betting ceremony, and the king, it's mentioned that the king definitely took liberties with Joanna Lannister that night. So for sure he was grabbing on her and stuff. He probably was like, all right, well, let me go have sex with her first real quick. And then Tywin has sex with her, obviously, afterwards. And then maybe the whole thing is Tywin is so mad and such a shrew because he doesn't know. He probably spends his whole life thinking, are these two twins mine? Because of what the king did. And obviously he already at that point doesn't really fuck with the king, because the king's mental illness is already affecting him. Say mental illness because it's the modern world, but the Mad King was crazy. Mixed Queen Destiny said 22. Well, thank you. You don't have to say it like that. I know it's only a few people watching. Appreciate it. Billy Bob says 2:30 a.m. I'm sitting here hitting the bong, watching man Sir Hunt's talking knowledge. Well, thank you, my dude. He's always on my Discord as well. Obviously, he's a member of my Patreon, but he's always on Discord as well. Me and him chat it up often. He's from Scotland, represent, you know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, I just ended with the Northwestern members question by saying Cersei and Jamie. Billy Bob, your question is next, my dude. He says, how do you think, thank you for your support, by the way. He says, how do you think things would have played out if the Mad King hadn't turned up at Harrenhal? For reference, I'm referring to the supposed Great Council that was to be secretly held. I don't know. The what if things are hard because I kind of always do that, but it's a story. So I ultimately think these what ifs, like situations like that, that's why it's hard to answer this, Billy Bob. It's because those situations wouldn't exist if the story was finished. Because if it was finished, we'd all realize the full construct of George's plan and why he wrote it this way and what the ending is. So he knows what the ending is. We just ain't got it yet. So it's easier to answer questions, what if ones, if we have the full story. That's why I hate what if videos on YouTube, and also like what if videos like history scenarios are interesting because we know what happened. It's history. But what if scenarios for like my favorite stuff to me is annoying, like for like Harry Potter stuff, because we know what happened in the Harry Potter movies. We watch them all the time. Or Lord of the Rings. I think there's like some channels that are basically like, I don't want to, there's like, they have like 10 million subscribers and they put out 15 videos a day. Not even an exaggeration. I think Watch Mojo, they'll just do stuff like what if. I'm not a big fan of those videos because I'm always like, these are you know what I mean. But this for A Song of Ice and Fire, it's always like you could say, well, one of 10 different things happened and all of them would be pretty good, but maybe once the story finishes we wouldn't say that for the what if situation, because like I don't really have, for the original 6 Dune books, let me try to name the 6 Dune books in order. I can name all these Song of Ice and Fire books in order, but the Dune books is Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor, wait, let me count on my hand so I know how many I've said. Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor of Dune, Heretics of Dune, Chapter House Dune. Those are the original 6 that Frank wrote. And then I've read Hunters of Dune, which is written by Frank Herbert's son, Jesse. No, I'm just kidding. Forget Frank Herbert's son, as obviously. That's kind of embarrassing. Brian Herbert. Brian Herbert wrote the book alongside this dude named Kevin J. Anderson. So I've read Hunters of Dune, but the original 6 are amazing. And I find myself, the only thing I think about are like what if type questions are what if the Futars did this? And then I also think like, well, Brian's son, Brian, right? Frank's son is probably covered all those what if questions and all these subsequent books that he's written, which is why we have 3 different books on House Harkonnen or something that are coming out, like 3 different more, and there's already like 20, there's like 50, there's an insane amount of Dune books after the original 6 that Frank wrote. Frank probably would have wrote more if he hadn't died, but he set up the story to the point where like Duncan Idaho and the entire crew of the No Ship were set up to just to set up a new existence for humankind. Like the whole point of the last like 3 Dune books were seemingly that Leto II thought humanity got stuck in this one path and didn't want to diverge and was stuck being uncreative and pushing things and moving forward. So what he did was he made it so that humans would never happen again, and that was by starting in a completely unknown part of space. And that's how Duncan Idaho ended with the No Ship in the situation that was set up at the end of Chapter House Dune. Chapter House Dune, the whole point is that Dune is gone, and Dune is now, they turned the Chapter House planet for the Bene Gesserit is being turned into a new Arrakis. So it's the same thing that was happening in Children of Dune when Arrakis is getting jungle-fied, and then when Leto is like 3,100 years old, Leto II, the Emperor, God Emperor of Dune, Arrakis has full-on rainforest, and it rains, and it's actually too much of a problem that the sandworms are dying. So that's actually what happens. All the sandworms die, and then the God Emperor hoards all of the spice, and then he hides it. He hides it around Arrakis because he's a bastard. And then all the main characters, 1,400 years after he dies, and it sounds like I'm slaying Dune, but I'm not. I'm not. Dune is amazing. It's amazing. It just gets wild. It's crazy, but it's engaging as shit. It's a good book. I've actually been, the person I was mentioning earlier, another YouTuber, Daniel Green. He wrote a cyberpunk book or something that I was kind of looking into a little bit. I might pick that up, but it's also really short, so I don't necessarily have enough Audible credits to spend it on a book that's only 8 hours. I need like 20 plus 30-hour books, or to make my Audible credit seem like it's worth. Because when you buy one single Audible, it's $15. You can buy a paperback book for $10. Actually, I've bought that one copy of my Lord of the Rings Return of the King book for $7. So, you can get some cheap physical books, but the audio books, you got to pay for those. And I respect that because it's a performance. It's like you're not going to go to the movies nowadays and expect to pay $5. That's just too reasonable. But also, you're seeing it. Most movies nowadays are way too long. They're like 4 hours. Who the fuck? Like, I couldn't believe. I'll be honest. I walked out of the new Batman movie, the one with Robert Pattinson. I think I've said that before. I walked out of that. Almost none read Dune here. Wait, you mean in St. Petersburg, Russia, no one reads Dune? I bet you there's some Dune fans in St. Petersburg, Russia, my dude. Alright, let me continue on with my Patreon questions. So, to answer your question, Billy Bob, how do you think things would have played out if the Mad King hadn't, basically gone to the Great Council at Harrenhal? So, he definitely knew about it. He was told, by Varys, the master of spies, hey, your son is trying to do something reasonable. And I guess, Varys mentions to Kevin right before he kills him that he's going to undo all of Cersei's chaos. So the reason why Varys is killing Kevin is because Kevin is seemingly a reasonable dude. So you would assume that the reason why Varys told the Mad King about Rhaegar is because Rhaegar is a reasonable dude. And Varys has some intention. Maybe his whole intention was to instill a fake person on the Iron Throne. Maybe he's a secret Blackfire. Whatever. Maybe he just thrives off of chaos itself and realizes that, but doesn't want to outwardly admit that, because why would he? Maybe he's just literally a faceless man. It's so easy for a faceless man to actually be behind all of that. And you could easily make it convincing as well, because he kind of just disappears. Like on the TV show, they made it clear. It's Varys went with Tyrion, and then I think he has a conversation with Tyrion on a balcony after Tyrion has the crate opened up, and he's like, you've been shoving your shit through the holes and stuff. That doesn't happen. I think it's Illyrio Mopatis, kind of, who, he's already working with Daenerys the whole time, because he gives Daenerys ships to go, he sends them, and he also sends Barristan Selmy and Strong Belwas. I'm getting too deep into it. Let me answer your actual question. I think things would have been amazingly different if the Mad King had just stayed there, because then that would have fed his suspicions even further. He wouldn't have known what would have happened, so he probably would have self-destructed, and Rhaegar would have known that, because he would have gotten word. But since his father showed up, and we don't have the specifics, it's kind of like, did Rhaegar know the whole time? Because if he did know the whole time, as soon as he started planning it, he could easily have, canceled it. Because the attorney at Harrenhal was held by the house that held Harrenhal at the time were not rich. So there was a mystery donor. That mystery donor turned out being Rhaegar, right? We find that out. But potentially, Rhaegar, if he knew his dad was going to show up, he could have canceled it and then started planning something else. So he didn't do that. So it makes you wonder if, did the Mad King and Varys worked in secret, and then the Mad King left long enough after, So that'd be interesting. A lot of things could have been different. It's hard to pinpoint one, but one immediate one, if he didn't go, like I was saying, he would have self-imploded, and then potentially you wouldn't have had the deaths of Brandon Stark and is it Rickon at the time, or Rickard? Ned Stark's dad and his brother, his older brother Brandon, they wouldn't have died because that's kind of a direct situation that's caused, like I was mentioning at the beginning of the screen, because the Mad King was there. Lyanna had to hide her identity as the Knight of the Laughing Tree. That wouldn't have happened if it was just Rhaegar entertaining. Everybody there that was intelligent would have known that, hey, this is secretly Rhaegar putting on this tourney, and here's all the plans. He plans on accumulating power, redoing a lot of the wrongs that his father did. At least I think that. And then when his dad shows up, Rhaegar throws a tantrum, gets pissed off that his dad ruined all these plans, because Rhaegar is a dreamer. He gets these dreams that White Walkers are coming, and he knows he has to unite everybody, because he sees all these Targaryens that don't have dragons, and they see these visions of getting dragons, and they do these crazy things like the tragedy at Summerhall, are because they're seeing Daenerys. They're seeing Daenerys' vision. I've said that. I remember when I came up with that in a stream. I know lots of people have probably said that, but I remember when I had a realization of that, it was on stream, and I was like, holy shit. But no, that's really what it is. They're all seeing wrong versions of what happens with Daenerys. We're walking into fire, coming out with dragons. So you have Aerion Brightflame. He drinks a cup of fire because he's like, he sees a small part of Daenerys' vision, and he probably only gets it once, like Viserys. King Viserys on the TV show on House of the Dragon. He only has that dream that one time, and he's chasing that dream his whole life, trying to figure out. He's like, I know I got an heir. It sits on the throne, and then all the dragons roar at once, and like that, he never gets that dream again. So that's what happened to this dude, Aerion Brightflame, and he drank wildfire. He's like, I've got to be on fire. And then I walk out, and I'm a dragon. And really, it was Daenerys, like this picture that I have right here, right next to me, covering up my frog, of Daenerys. Let me see which image it is right here. Yeah. Well, it's not covering up my frog. It's covering up Robert Baratheon. But yeah. All right. So, hopefully you enjoyed that. Oh, Billy Bob said never read the books. Oh, well. That's shit. That probably makes listening to my dumbass way more enjoyable. Because if you did, maybe you'd have your own takes, or like you wouldn't have you know what I mean. Like the stuff that I say, maybe you wouldn't agree with because you read it a different way. You know what I mean? That's what I'm trying to say. So maybe you wouldn't enjoy listening to me as much if you had read the book. So I'm actually glad that you've never read the books, my dude. Thank you for submitting that question. Thank you for your support. Then I got another question from Mixed Queen Destiny Phillips 420. She says, I'm sorry in advance. I haven't really asked any questions in a while. And to be honest, you haven't in like 4 or 5 streams, I think. She says, just how crazy did Aegon become at Summerhall? And I kind of just talked about that. So this is perfect. It's leading into it. He was so soft that he couldn't stop Jaehaerys from overriding his wishes to betroth Aerys and Rhaella. So wait, what's the question? Just how crazy did Egg become at Summerhall? So Aegon, from the Dunk and Egg series, The Night of the Seven Kingdoms, I've only actually read that twice. Like, I've literally actually only read that twice. The first time I read it, I did a live stream. It was the first time I even thought about reading the books, and it was like, I was kind of reacting to it. I have The Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which includes all 3 stories. The Hedge Knight, the Sworn Sword, or whatever. I can't remember them all 3 individually, but they're really short, the novella. I've only read that like twice. And in comparison to my knowledge base of the main series, I don't know as much about that time period. I mean, it's obviously really interesting because I love Bloodraven, right? And that's his origins. But the Bloodraven we have now that we're dealing with Breanne is also, its whole entity, right? But the question was, how crazy was he at Summerhall? So the storyline with that is there's this woods witch that visits, right? And a similar thing that happens with Jaehaerys and Alysanne, and that seems to be a theme in George's writing, is that parents that have a, king and queen, they have a lot of kids, they can't control what they do. And if they marry for love, their kids are going to do that. And that's what Dunk did. So when Dunk was growing, that's what Egg did. Aegon, the Unlikely. He's called the Unlikely because he's so far down the line of succession that he's like the 5th or 6th removed from inheriting the throne that it's crazy that he gets it. But he does get it. And because of that, he kind of got to marry for love. But Jaehaerys, too, overriding his wishes to betroth Aerys and Rhaella. So once again, your question was just how crazy was he? I think he tried to burn everybody alive. He got insane. He tried to do what my uncle... I shouldn't say that, but yeah, he tried to do what my uncle tried to do one time. He tried to burn down a building. He literally tried to sacrifice everybody in a house. In Summerhall, at the Targaryen summer home. He tried to burn all of them alive, and he willingly did it because he saw that dream that I was talking about, that other, Targaryens like Aerion and potentially all the Targaryens see after they don't have dragons. They all get a glimpse of Daenerys bringing dragons back, just different versions of it, and they think it's them because they're experiencing the dream. So anybody would have a dream like that, you think it was you, right? So those Targaryens that have that, they're considered mad. Like Egg's older brother from the series, they were on the Drunken. He drinks all the time because he gets dragon dreams. George confirms that in the stories. And he sees a dragon dream so good that he doesn't see the Daenerys one, right? He sees a dream that involves Dunk fighting in a trial by 7 because Dunk ultimately beats the shit out of Aerion Brightflame for smacking this girl that Dunk was interested in. So his relationship with Egg kind of helps him out there because after he does that, he's at attorney, right? And he finds Egg as this runaway, and he doesn't know he's a prince. He doesn't know he's a Targaryen prince because at this time there's a bunch of Targaryen princes. There's no dragons, so there's no war that could kill a bunch of them. There's like probably 30 Targaryen princes. Like I said, Dunk. There's so many Targaryens around that Egg is so far removed from the line of succession that he can just hang out. There's a lot of them, but they also get wiped out quickly. Billy Bob, what did you say in the chat here? I'll probably give them a shout once I finish this read through. Oh, you're talking about the Dune books, Billy. So yeah, I think he went 100% crazy. We'll say that to answer your question. Then you say, I have a crazy theory. Hear me out. I think Rhaegar was absolutely supposed to be sacrificed in Summerhall for sure. He's part of his mother's being pregnant with him is part of the willing sacrifice that Aegon gets, and I think he gets such a strong dream that he literally sees what happens to Daenerys, but he experiences him as itself. So if you can imagine, Daenerys, one of the memories that she has through fire, which is how they're linked, they're related to the fire element. All of her experience involving that is she's standing in the fire, and then when it goes out, she's got dragons. So that's all they can see. They can't see themselves and realize, oh, they're a woman, so it's not actually them, like for Aegon, it's not him, it's his great-grandniece, who's also his daughter, whose sister, who's his cousin, It's not like that. It's not all he can see is himself, and he looks down, and he's like, I got dragons. All these people are dead, but I got dragons. And he realizes that if he has those, he can do what he needs to do at the time, which is stop another Blackfire rebellion, right? And then also unite the Seven Kingdoms, which is what Aegon did. Which, at that point when it's happening, it's 200 years after Aegon, so everybody's kind of in need of a reminder of why Targaryens are dragons. So he willingly thinks to himself, I'm going to sacrifice all these people here to bring back dragons. Because he's like, I survived this fire walking out with dragons. That's exactly what happened, I think. But your theory. Aerys and Rhaella were aware of it. Something went wrong. Maybe it was sabotage or just plain bad luck. Or maybe Bloodraven wanted Rhaegar to be born and did something, but instead, on raising the dragons, everything went crazy. Yep, and Aerys and Rhaella had to be evacuated for sure. And what do I think? Well, I think for sure it's going to be hard until we get part 2 of Fire and Blood. Once we do, George is going to tell us exactly what happened there with the Targaryens. I see Kolnitsky saying 19 watching. It's weird that the this little counter thing I have up here says 35. It's like frozen on it. But this is a paid for software, so it's kind of weird. Oh, wait. So, wait. Billy, you're saying you have read A Song of Ice and Fire. It's the Dune books you were saying you hadn't read. All right, so yeah, I'm an idiot. See, clearly I haven't read your comments. My bad. Yeah, of course. I was about to say, maybe you do enjoy me more if you hadn't read Song of Ice and Fire. I think with Destiny, that's why she likes listening to me, because maybe she's reading it now or hasn't read it maybe as much and likes to hear me talk about it. I think that's what you were saying, Destiny, one time. I seen a comment of you saying that one time. But alright, I'm about to end this. This was like almost 3 hours. I did this one longer because I don't know if I'll be able to do a live stream next week. But also, as a further incentive, if you join my Patreon for $2, you get access to all the content that I have over there. But also once a month, at first, I'm gonna do like a panel live stream. I saw there's this one channel who this lady, she's like Australian maybe she's New Zealand. She does interviews with the cast members, some of the cast members from House of the Dragon, and she did like a panel thing where she had 35 people sign up for this Zoom session, and I just thought like, yo, that would be dope to do that with people on my patrons. So all these questions I'm always answering from these people that, you know, give me their money, thank you, they'll be joining me. So I'm gonna take a week off to kind of figure out something with that too, to see which one of them wants to sign up for it. So yeah, so I try to do this one a little bit longer, but this is a good point to wrap this up. Thank you for watching. My bad, Billy. I didn't mean to assume that, because actually that's kind of insulting. I remember I thought that about Dennis one time too. My buddy Dennis, he's always commenting on here. He said, yeah, of course I've read the books, you idiot. I remember thinking right afterwards, I didn't comment this, but I remember thinking like, oh yeah, it's just because I feel like just because I've done it, nobody else has done it. You know what I mean? So when I have done it, I want to be like, oh yeah, when you do this, you'll see, right? But really, no, people have already done it, and I'm just now catching up. That's usually how it's always been with me. So yeah, my bad. Of course, I thought about it again immediately afterwards, and I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. Why would he be interested in anything I'm saying if he hasn't read it himself? Because I feel like I'm doing a good job explaining it, but I'm not doing that good. There's people that do way better than I do. Obviously, you know what I'm saying. All right, I'm about to get out of here, y'all. About to go smoke a cigarette. About to go check on my children. I might sneak outside if I hear no crying first. Girlfriend, if you're watching this, girlfriend, you know who you are. I'm going to go outside first, and then I'm going to go back there. Because they're going to start crying as soon as they see me, because I am a MVP, most wanted. They want to see me, which is awesome. So, you know, I had to do a show, you know what I'm saying? All right, y'all. Peace. Thank you for watching. Also, thank you for everybody watching this afterwards. If you're not watching live, please consider joining my Patreon. You may join me for one of these. And actually, if, you know, not a lot of people want to do it on my Patreon, then I'll do it on the community section for everybody. So if you're around on YouTube when I do that link right before I go live and you click on it, you can join. But I'm going to have the software mastered where I'll be able to boot people that will troll, which I'm sure there'll be a bunch of people that do that, because why not? It would be funny if somebody, like, if there's like 10 people here or something, and one random person who got the link that was like, you know, watching, and they were like, hey, Sir Hunter, you're an idiot. It would be funny. Like I said, I would laugh at that. Probably on the stream. But if they were like being just ridiculous and they didn't immediately stop, then obviously it wouldn't be funny. But yeah, thank you for watching, everybody that is watching right now. Also, let me know in the comments if you're watching this afterwards, and right now I'll be in the chat for like a few seconds after I end it. Let me know if Tuesday is a weird day to choose from. And I'm going to wait 10 seconds so that the stream actually finishes playing live what I just said, because there's like a 10-second delay or something. So 10, 9, 8. No, there's no. I don't think I have a troll. I don't have enough people to have a troll. I'm just saying, if someone did do that, like if you're going to troll somebody, it would be when they send a link that anybody can join on one of these streams, because it would be funny. If you're a troll, that would be funny. You would get on the lives. I don't have to explain that to you, Kolnitsky. You're from Russia. You guys destroyed America. No, I'm just kidding. Russian troll. Well, there's genuinely people that actually believe that. I don't. That's why I was making fun of it. But I'm just saying. I mean, there definitely was some Russian interference. We've got a long history of spying on Russia. Russia spies on us. Goes back and forth. But I'm just saying. Oh yeah, nobody said anything in the chat. But I got my goat chair. I might have to move it because my head's in the way. But yeah, my goat's back. People always used to comment about it. I got it on Etsy. I typed in Sir Hunts, and that was the picture of the thing that just showed up. I'm gonna end the stream right there. 5, 4, 3, 2. I think it caught up. I know there was like a 7-second delay. I just want to get everybody to. You are a good Russian. But why American media depicts Russians? It's safe to call Russians the bad guy, because I don't know. I guess because of the Cold War, we're like, yeah, fuck it. Everybody can be Russian in the movies. Well, don't make them any other race, because the Russians. Well, is Russian a race? I don't know. It's confusing. All right, 5, 4. All right, that's the sound that my stream will go out.